Hi there, and welcome to UK HADO. I'm Jim, and this is...
I'm Tom. Pleased to meet you.
We've both been involved with UK HADO since it came to the UK 3 years ago, and today we're going to be taking you through a brief bit about what is HADO, just to start us off, and then through the matches of the UK HADO Championships 2021. So you can both see the matches again, but also have a look at us talking through really what was going on here. Because for a lot of people new to the sport, there's lots of stuff going on, but you can't really tell what's good, what's bad, and so we're hopefully going to be able to talk you through those things and give you an introduction to what's going on. So first of all, what is HADO? HADO is the world's first techno sport. It was created in Tokyo 6 years ago. It's now played in 38 countries. By the time this video goes out, that could be more, because the rate of growth is really quite crazy. So what it does is it combines esports elements, such as the fact that all the interaction between the players is done through electronics, so there's a completely level playing field, so there's no gender or age categories, which become quite apparent when you watch the matches, to the sport, and also hopefully when you watch the matches you understand why there are no gender or age categories. Basically, strength and physical size don't make any difference to your ability to play. What makes difference is basically how much time you spend on the court, how much you practice, and how much you train. Combined with that, it is also a highly physical sport. So it takes that element from physical sports. There's a lot of motion, a lot of movement, real fast, rapid gameplay in the way it works. So we've got some of the best elements of both sides of the sporting spectrum, all combined together in HADO through augmented reality, which is how the players are going to be interacting with each other. So the key things to be aware of: a match lasts 80 seconds. During that match, the players are earning points by throwing energy blasts from their hands towards the opposing team. And what they're trying to hit are their life markers, which is 4 triangles in a circle formation: blue in front of the blue team, red in front of the red team. If they can hit dead center, they can destroy all 4 with one shot. Otherwise, they just destroy what they hit. When all 4 are wiped out, that player is out of game for 3 seconds before being returned on full life, and the team that took him out earns 1 point. Most points won in the 80 seconds wins the match. Should it end in a draw, it will go to overtime, and then at that point, the first knockout on any player wins the match. All matches we're going to be looking at today, from both the pool stages and the knockout stages, are done as a best of 3. I think that's it, isn't it?
I think you've covered it. Obviously, what we're going to be doing today is trying to give you a bit of post-game analysis, as he said, to give you a rough idea of what's been going on in each of the matches. So hopefully it'll start to make a bit of sense. But it should be good fun.
Okay, so thanks. Stick with us, and we're going to talk you through all events of the UK Championship.
And here we go. Opening match of the UK Championships. Two very good teams here. It's going to be interesting to see how IDK start off their defence. Nice 2-point lead though, so they're looking strong as we go through the first, close on 20 seconds. 4-1 lead for IDK now. You need at least 3 points though, preferably 4 points to have a comfortable lead. There we go, moving to a comfortable lead position now. SAS Ninjas fighting back still. Now, all the matches today are being played on a best of 3 format, so this is only the first of their games. So, although things definitely go in the favour of IDK on this first round, it'll be interesting to see if SAS Ninjas can pick up the game to round 2 and try and pull the game back on them. Coming on 25 seconds to play here. Significant lead still for IDK, but SAS Ninjas still fighting back well. Be interesting to see the end of the match stats here. See if we can spot a weak link on SAS Ninjas. But IDK generally moving well, dodging well, and really nice and accurate on the shots. A lot of good low groundwork from them there too. A lovely ground slide there to finish off with. So that's 13 points to 5 for IDK, said the defending UK champions. Across the board, good scoring there. Obviously very high for players 1 and 3, which will be Milo and Paris.
Record it, tell anything we want.
Exactly. All right, guys. So we're starting off with the first game of the UK Championship. It was between IDK on red and SAS Ninjas on blue. As a bit of a background, IDK are the reigning champions at this point from the previous year. for the UK Championship the previous year. They're a very good team. They're very experienced. They've been around for quite a while. The SAS Ninjas are a brand new team. They only formed relatively recently, about a month ago, and they've got some quite experienced players, but they've not had much experience in tournaments. So it's quite interesting to see how that all played out on the court. Going into that, what I'm generally going to be doing is focusing on looking at the stat builds and things like that for what they did, to try and give you an idea of what the teams were intending to do, and we can talk about whether they actually succeeded. In that previous game, we've just seen both teams went in with the idea of trying to shoot. So effectively, everyone's taken stats that complement shooting. IDK very much having faster shots, because if you have a fast shot, like a speed 5 or 4, it means you can accurately hit people you think might be good at dodging. The only thing I did notice was that SAS Ninjas had one of their players, I think it was player 6, chose to take a charge 4. Generally, the only reason you would do that is if you're not 100% if the other team's going to try a shield tactic. So I think what they were preparing for there is if IDK pull out a shield tactic, they had someone able to do some lots of shots to try and take their shield down. Other than that, it's just going to be a straight shootout between the two teams at that point. There's no one's got a particular shield player or anything that they're trying to pull off. And I think that's pretty much how it started.
Yeah, and obviously when we saw them in the match, a lot of really good movement from both teams, but IDK just that little bit more mobile than what we're seeing from SAS Ninjas. So groundwork, knee slide elements, and a lot more full width of the court motion. Whereas with SAS Ninjas, they were quite heavily focused in their own sort of left, centre and right areas, apart from when they were doing those switch manoeuvres. And the idea of switch manoeuvres is basically to try and throw your opponents off. So when they start to get an idea of your pattern, of your firing, of your dodging, that you switch. So they've got somebody new in front of them to kind of break that up and make it more difficult for them to keep up with you. Unfortunately, unless you've also got your eye on how they're doing, it also switches it up for yourself. So it's something that you need to do with a real clear pattern to it, and it seems to just be a part of the movement tactic, but it didn't seem to have a purpose to it necessarily. And I'm not sure that really paid off for them the way they hoped it was going to. What it did lead to, unfortunately for SAS, is several times when they were doing that switch manoeuvre, they got clumping the players together. So you got a point where you had all three of them in one third of the court area, almost in a line. And at that point, all that IDK had to do was fire towards the general group, and they were going to hit something useful every time. And every time your team clumps together like that, it just makes it much more readily available with all your target blocks being together. So the other team also don't have to aim at that point.
It's interesting actually, because IDK are a very good team. They're very relaxed, and you can actually see it the way they play. And you said with the clumping, if you watch IDK's moving around the pitch, they avoid that. They have people at the front moving across, going low. It's actually very difficult to tell where they're moving. They're a bit difficult to play against because they can be all over the court, and every single one of them can be dangerous from pretty much everyone on the court. Yeah. Which, as you say, I think was a main advantage for them in that match. Yeah,
and if they do end up sort of moving together in the way that SAS Ninjas were, they always end up at very different physical heights. Yeah. Whereas SAS were relatively pretty much the same height each time they clubbed together, which caused a problem with that. And you can even see, basically looking at the relaxed side there with IDK, that in the last 5-6 seconds of the match, you've got Paris coming on that front line, and he's just decided to throw up a shield. Yep. So that he just, because he doesn't want to give any points away in those last few seconds, because why would you? Yeah. But fundamentally, they've won the match. He doesn't have to carry on trying at that point, and he's reserving his energy for the next game.
Yeah, 100%. Once they took the point lead early on, they kind of controlled the pace and were just keeping it nice and steady. To be fair to SAS Ninjas, they kept going towards the end. That's what you got to do. You got to keep looking for opportunities, and you can also learn by playing the opposition and start looking for patterns for your next game. So it's 100% worth trying to feel out what's going on. But at the same time, if you're calm enough that you're relaxed and putting up shields and just taking your time, it means you can spend more time observing your opponents for the next round as well. But it was a good game.
Okay, so let's go and have a look at round 2. Yeah.
And here we go on match 2. Let's see if SAS Ninjas have managed to learn anything from that first round. 10 seconds in, no score yet. So evasion's definitely picked up. 2 points on the board now for IDK. Are SAS going to be able to hold them off? 2-1, 2-2. Definitely a closer game. See if SAS Ninjas can keep this going till the 80-second mark though. 2 point lead now for IDK. So SAS have got some work to do to catch him up now. Starting to extend that lead again when it starts getting dangerous. 40 seconds left to play now. 4 point lead for IDK. They're looking comfortable, but we've seen plenty of matches where this sort of scoreline can still turn around in this last 30 seconds. 5 points for SAS Ninjas. They're definitely not going down without a fight. Ten 6, 10 7, 12 seconds to play. 11 7. Not going to pull it back. 12 7. And IDK take their first match.
Do you want to introduce this on?
So that was the deciding match of that best of 3 there, with IDK won both matches in that set, but quite a different feel to that match and very different tempo to the way the game went.
Yeah, so I mean, again, looking at the stats of what the teams were trying to do, both teams again went for a sort of straight up shootout. I mean, I actually spoke to some of the guys from SAS Ninja after that game at the time, and one of them in particular went to slightly higher charge rate. So there then was 2 people with charge 4. That, I did ask them, like, was that because you thought they were going to try a shield tactic? And actually the reasoning was, in the first game they were under so much pressure, they were having to dodge quite a lot, and it's very difficult to charge your energy when you're dodging very actively because your arm starts going off of upright, which is where it needs to be. So he decided to take a high charge rate in order to try and balance that out and make sure he could get shots out on target. But again, it was a pretty much straight shootout between both teams, which again, I think SAS relaxed a bit. They'd done their first game against IDK. That was the first time they'd faced them, and they kind of went in. You can see at the start there was it was actually a bit more of a close start than the first game, but then it sort of proceeded from there.
Yeah, I mean there was a lot of very good active dodging coming from SAS, and there weren't. In the first game there was multiple switches between the front guards there, whereas this time they only happened once. So they were staying in position a lot more, really getting a much better feel for the opponents they're against, and because of that they weren't getting that clumping effect in the same way, which is really, really good. They weren't offering as much target and opportunity to IDK. They were being much more active in what they were doing, much more focused on taking down the direct opponents ahead of them, which is good. It showed it being a much closer game. Yeah,
I think they got their eye in as well because of that. Because when you're more relaxed and you've got better movement and teamwork around the pitch, it gives you more flexibility to actually pay attention to what you're doing with shooting the opponent. And they were definitely getting more hits when they needed them, which was good. I mean, statistically, there were still some issues. So I've looked at the sort of post game stats as well. And from a perspective of SAS Ninjas, they fired like 137 shots, during that match. But their accuracy was very low. It was like between 11 to 23%, so 23% being their best. Whereas IDK were basically surgical. They were ranging anything between 33 to 47% accuracy, and they only fired 73 shots, but those shots were clearly hitting targets, which is a key thing. That's partly down to IDK being good at dodging, but it's also, you've got to spend a bit of time focusing when you're shooting as well as dodging.
Yeah, you've also got the factor there, sort of merging on the stats point, that yes, obviously SAS Ninjas have boosted their charge rate, which meant they could fire so many more shots, but their shots were slower.
100%, yeah.
They were much lower speed settings than IDK had,
Yep.
So they were much easier to dodge and evade.
Interestingly, actually, so when you go up against a team like IDK who are so good at dodging, that's when you really want to start trying to take speed, because it counters their dodging ability. If you have slow shots at like speed 3 and 2 coming at you and you're good at dodging and you're very aware of what's going on, it's quite easy to evade them. And so that is something that potentially they could do moving forwards, is look at getting higher speed shots. The problem with that is if you don't have energy to shoot, it's very dangerous because you don't have pressure on the other team. So I think that's partly why they did it, but it didn't pan out. Because IDK just withheld the pressure and kept dodging and kept hitting what they were aiming at.
Yeah, definitly.
It was a good game.
Tactical thoughts for SAS for next time they meet IDK.
100%.
But yeah, overall, 2 really good matches there.
Yep.
SAS are showing that they're going to be a team that's going to be difficult to beat once they've got a few bit more match experience under the belt.
100%.
And IDK demonstrating why they're the defending UK champions.
Yeah, they are very good.
Right. Next game then, guys.
Santa all in blue versus Fighting Mongooses in red. Blue's getting a lot of support from the crowd here, as there are very much one of our tournament underdogs. Oh, they've got points on the board. Given the experience of the two teams, that's not bad. (10-1) as we approach the halfway mark here. I think experience is certainly showing between these two teams. And that second score there for Blue getting a fantastic cheer from the crowd as well. The audience here most certainly love an underdog. I think Santa Roll are going to get a lot of support in all their matches, irrespective of the scoreline. (20 points to 4). It's a good open there. Good opener there from Santa Roll.
Alright guys, so now we're on to the second game, or the first set of the second game, which is Sana All are on blue this time, and we've got the Fighting Mongooses on red. Bit of background on both teams. The Fighting Mongooses have been around for a while. They're actually a reasonably good team who's competed in several UK Championships. Sana All is a brand new team who came together that day because at least one person couldn't make it, so they filled in with an extra person, and they generally have almost no experience. There's one team player on there, I think he's player 5, is the only one that's actually sort of trained regularly with some good teams. The other guys were just giving it a go, and so this is some novice beginners against some reasonably experienced players. That being said, they made some good choices before the start of the game. So looking at their stat line, basically Mongooses went for a standard kind of shoot setup. They did have one person with charge 4. Again, that's important for trying to take shields down, and that was player 3. The other team basically had the more experienced player go for a shield build, so that was player 5, and he was going to try and protect the other two team members. The other two team members also both took speed 4, which I think was a good choice, because being new to the sport, having quite a fast energy orb, you're generally going to play at the back of the pitch because you're going to be a bit nervous about going up to the front line. So having speed 4 gives you an opportunity to potentially actually hit some people on the other team, whereas if you have a slower speed, it gives them more time to dodge. It is worth noting the shielding guy did a good job putting some shields up to protect his team. All I would say is that equally on the Fighting Mongooses team, their charge 4 guy did a very good job at knocking the shield down, which is what he was supposed to be doing.
Yeah, unfortunately, again, due to them being new, they fell very much into that trap of fighting towards the back line. A lot of the game, they were right up against the actual back wall of the pitch, which in your brain, it almost gives you this idea that you should be safer because you're further away, and in fact it's quite the opposite, because you've basically removed a significant portion of your dodging options, because you can't move backwards, you can't go out on an angle, you can't shift, because there's a wall directly behind you. And what you need to be is off that back wall, so you've got full freedom of motion to make yourself much more mobile, gives you a better choice of dodging and evading. But it's a psychological thing that further away is safer, and it isn't.
It's really difficult to dodge when your back's against the wall. Like, you can't duck even because it just blocks you from doing all that sort of movement. It's quite helpful.
So because of that, and partly due to the experience element, there was very little real motion. There was no real active dodging going on from Santa All, but they're very experienced. You wouldn't necessarily expect that.
And they still got some knockouts.
Yeah, they did still get some points on the board, which was really good.
Yep.
But obviously they weren't putting great deal of pressure on Fighting Mongooses there, so Fighting Mongooses were much more playing for basically getting these hits in, moving around the court for better angles against Santa All, rather than because they're having to actively dodge things that were coming in. One of the things that we should mention here is that one of the elements of the tournament is that should a team end up with an equal number of wins as another team in their pool, the deciding factor between them is about number of points scored in their winning matches. So
it's in their interest to unfortunately hammer teams even if they're not very good.
Yeah, if you've got a team that you're in a position that you can effectively try and farm them for points,
do it.
You do want to go for it because you want that points difference in there. And again, looking back into where they played there, Tom mentioned the shield player, slightly more experienced than the other team members, and he was trying to protect them, but because they were so much on the back wall, where he was putting the shields, we were actually relatively limited use. Had he had more aggressive players with him, he may well have put
He could have put them further forward.
Put their shields further forwards at better angles and better positions, and they would have actually given much better benefit than they did. As it was, all it did was slow down the speed at which mongooses could earn points.
They did a good job given the circumstances, if that makes sense, and he especially did a good job. To be fair to the other two guys as well, having never, like that being their first proper competitive game, actually getting points on the board is an achievement. So good job to them, and hopefully they'll keep coming back and improve. But yeah, it was an interesting game to watch.
Okay, so let's see what they learned from it and what they did in match 2.
So round 1 was a bit of demolition there from Fighting Mongooses in the red on Sanarol in blue. Let's see if Sanarol can put up a better fight in the second round. Immediate support there for the blue team, but red's on the board. But yeah, lower scoring possibly than round 1, but everyone's looking for some first point on the board from Sanarol. Yeah, and that's it. Sanarol are on the scoreboard. I think, as I said, doesn't matter what the score is, Sanarol are going to get shielded every point they score. So coverage to the halfway mark now, 10 points to 1, 11 points to 1. Fighting Mongooses are most certainly going to be using this to rack the points up with. Now, should there be a tie in positioning for teams? Oh, second point now for Sanarol. Should there be a tie in position for the teams at the end of the pool stages? Points scored in the games will be the deciding factor. So, unfortunately, if you're applying yourself against a weaker team, the definite requirement there is to try and rack as many points as you can on the board. So, if a point score point, it's going to go in your favour. 24 points to 2 in that second round. So that's a very convincing win there for IDK. Fighting Mongooses. Already getting the teams mixed up. That's not a good, not a good sign at this point.
Okay, so it's the second match in this setup here between Sanarol and Fighting Mongooses. Kind of predictably, given the experience of the teams, it was the second win there for Fighting Mongooses, and again another farming experience, but a nice shift in variation in tactics and stats.
Yeah, so before that game, it was quite interesting. So obviously they tried a shield tactic from Sanarol the previous game, and I think that the Mongooses thought they were going to do that again. And although they obviously won the first game, they still took steps to try and resolve it, because they actually had one of their players go to a charge 5 stat build. And the reason you want that is because if you can charge quickly, you can fire more shots, and you can take shields down quicker. So they actually had player 1 or Goo on their team switch to a charge 5. Interestingly, they didn't need it because the other team, Sanarol, also went charge 5. I think they weren't 100% whether the other team was going to try a shield tactic after that first round, but obviously they tried it slightly differently. So the shielder from the previous round went to a shield breaker role, enabling him to put a lot of shots out. Interestingly, again, looking at the stats, looking at the post-game sort of averages and things like that, effectively Mongooses had their eye in. One of their team managed to get 74% accuracy, and he knocked people out 11 times, which is quite frankly really good.
Without being knocked out at all.
Yeah, without being knocked out himself. So, and again, look at the movement rates. On the blue team, you've got player 5, which is the more experienced player, moved sort of 54 metres in comparison to 30 metres on his teammates. And it doesn't seem like a big difference. That extra 20 metres makes a big difference. Like, he was dodging quite a lot. That being said, he was also getting knocked out a fair amount. Whereas if you look at the Mongooses, they were quite relaxed. They didn't have to move quite as far, I don't think.
No, well, so unfortunately, due to the difference in experience they really weren't under that much pressure.
Yeah. Pressure's a key thing in the sport. If you're not under pressure, as the Mongooses sort of displayed there, you can effectively shoot the other team like fish in a barrel. It sounds a bit harsh, but that's what it is. And you can just focus on your accuracy, which is what. Also, Fighting Mongooses were renowned for being one of the more accurate teams. Them and their teammates that they train with are quite accurate. So you've got to keep moving and put pressure on them, otherwise they're going to knock you out.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how that shifts for Mongooses and when they meet SES Ninjas and IDK.
That's true, yeah. We'll see what happens.
So match 3 now underway. So that is Universe A on the red and Walking Stick on blue. Nice timing on that opening shield there from Walking Stick. So overall, Walking Stick are probably the more mobile of the two teams, but Universe A are exceptionally accurate. So 1 point apiece. 2 points apiece. Nice work from Walking Stick here. As I said, Walking Stick are a less experienced team than Universe A by quite some way, but they've got a fair few matches under their belt now, and hopefully some useful energy that's going to carry them through here. But Universe A's accuracy is really starting to tell now as we approach the halfway mark. Third point on the board for Walking Stick. They're already picking up the underdog cheers and claps from all our spectators. Good to see Walking Stick keeping the pressure up as best they can all the way through. 12-7. Doubt it's going to be enough to win the game at this point, but it's a good fight back nonetheless. Remembering, if they get to a point where they're tied on matches 1 with any of the teams, it's going to be their point score difference that's going to matter, so scoring every point you can is important.
Right guys, so next up is the first set in game number 3, which is, we've got the Walking Sticks on blue versus Universe A on red. Again, a bit of background to the teams. Universe A are effectively a training partner to the Fighting Mongooses. They both play against each other quite regularly. They are very good, they're quite experienced. Their main skill and the sort of things they're known for is actually historically they came very close to beating IDK once with their accuracy. They're extremely accurate, very good shooters. Less good at dodging, but it sometimes pans out for them. Walking Stick's a relatively new team. They've done about 3 actual tournaments though, so that even though they've only started relatively recently, they've actually had a fair amount of experience in that time. They're taking it reasonably serious and done some fair amount of training. They are quite young, but that's not necessarily a downside in this sport. No. So we're expecting to see some good movement from them during the game. Sorry, I just forgot. Stats-wise, it's another thing I'm supposed to talk about. Stats-wise, it's just going to be a straight shootout again. The only thing again I noticed is a couple of players from each team took charge 4 again, probably in preparation in case something happens where someone needs a shield. It's a thing that happens a lot. Shields are becoming prevalent in the sport, and so people are taking sort of just a point here and there to make sure they can deal with it if they need to.
Yeah. So overall, saw really good motion there from Walking Stick. Yep. A lot of good movement around the court. However, the more the game went on, the more they got hit, the more they started drifting towards that back wall.
Yep.
And the 2 of the players were caught for most second half of the match. Really, were caught on their back wall, having taken away their own options and their own dodging capacity by doing so. So it's such a psychological trick that you get hammered. You want to get further away.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it makes things worse for you, not better. Accuracy of Universe A just coming through all the way there. Yep. Good position on the court to take advantage of what was going on. But nice to see that Walking Stick fought back all the way through. They didn't get disheartened. And they did give quite a good fight back towards in the second half of the match.
It was. And actually, it's interesting because effectively one of the key things, like you said, you get a bit disheartened sometimes if you end up on the back court, and the key thing is you can't let that get to you. You've got to keep pushing, and I think they got spurred on there a bit by the crowd actually, and there was a point where they started to come back, get some points, and had the game gone on for longer maybe they'd have done all right, but at the same time Universe A just stayed calm. A couple of things I noticed on the sort of end of game stats, if that makes sense. You look at the front man on Walking Stick, he moved like 82 metres. He still got knocked out a fair amount, but fundamentally he was putting in the work to try and keep out of the way and keep dodging. Yeah. And he was in the most vulnerable spot because at the front you're always going to get shot a lot. That being said, Universe A's shooting ability is just through the roof. Overall, if I had to be super critical, there was one, player 4 on Walking Sticks, bullets used was quite low. His accuracy was actually pretty good, and he got a few knockouts and things. And so if he can get his technique down for keeping his arm charged and make sure he's getting the shots out and increases the number of bullets used, he'd be really effective. But that's it. I mean, fundamentally, both teams played pretty damn well there. Obviously, Universe A took it with their experience and accuracy, basically.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go and look at match 2.
Yeah.
See if Walking Stick look.
Okay. That's all teams ready. Here we go for round 2. USA in red versus walking sticks in blue. Nice rapid play from both sides there. Good early score from walking stick. Let's see if they can get some momentum going. Try and give USA a proper fight here. 3-0. Fantastic opening there from walking stick. 5-0. Whatever that between match pep talk was that they received, it certainly seems to have done the trick. But USA, good and solid team here, so expect to see a determined fight back from them. Yep, 4-7. USA slowly starts to claw that gap back. It's the halfway mark now, just 2 points in it. Can walking stick keep that early success rolling? Huge amount of support for walking stick now. You said that they're one of the teams in our open tournaments over the last couple of months have achieved some really good upsets against significantly more experienced teams. 10 seconds in it, 4 points split separating the teams. 5 points. This looks like it's going to be a win for walking stick. Yes, and walking stick take the second round against USA. Means we're going to be moving on to a third round decider.
Well, that was a distinct turnaround there.
It was.
Obviously, walking stick taking the second game in this best of three. So I'm going to move on to a decider. But a real nice change up there from walking stick. So they received a really good pep talk during the break.
They did.
Between the games.
Yeah.
Obviously got some good tactics and listened to it.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing I noticed was that looking at their stat build, the chap that I mentioned before, number 4, who previously did have a bit of a problems getting a number of energy jaws downrange, has upped his charge to 4. Now, historically I've mentioned it as being good to take down shields. The other reason it's good is, as I said, that SAS tried it. If you're under a lot of pressure from the other team, it's sometimes hard to keep your charge up because you're dodging so much. So taking a higher charge rate allows you to effectively make the most of the times you can charge, which enables you to fire more shots. And in this case it worked out, I think, really well for them because he used that to quite good success. Like, he upped the amount of bullets used by quite a significant amount, and then got more knockouts appropriately, which I also think was part of the response. They came out of the gate swinging basically to try and intimidate the Universe A team, and I think it worked.
Yeah, it was clearly much better motion, much more aggressive play.
Yeah.
And once they started to get that momentum up, they kept it.
Yeah.
They weren't caught in that backwall trap.
Yeah.
In the same way, there was one of the players who was still drifting around there, but generally for bulk of the match they were away from there,
Yeah.
and they weren't getting pushed back in the same way. And no, really good play from them.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I've played Universe A before, and they've commented on the previous thing that actually it's difficult to get out of a psychological problem when you start to lose and actually keep going. I think they did a good job at it, but they couldn't go over that original sort of lead that the other team put on them. Overall, really good play from Walking Stick. They came out the gate swinging and managed to take the win because of it.
Yeah, I think the other thing's worth mentioning with the high charge rate is that it can allow you to get that first shot.
Oh,
because
yes,
obviously your energy for the first shot is charged first.
Yeah.
And as we saw there, they charged early. They got a couple of points on the board pretty much in the first couple of seconds. And I think that faster charge rate and that more aggressive play certainly tipped the balance.
It's actually when you're playing, if you set up against another team, obviously you don't know what their stats are. If you see a player right at the start of the game as it's counting down, run to the front line, it's a very good chance that they've got a high charge rate and they're doing it to try and get a knockout before you can do anything. And all you can do in those situations is try and dodge it and then come back. But obviously Walking Stick took that and used it really effectively.
Yep. Okay, so let's go look at this third round decider.
Here we go, deciding match. USA in red versus Walking Stick in blue. Are we going to get our first upset of the tournament here? With a more experienced team falling to one of the juniors? Or is experience going to show? And the USA going to fight back all the way through here? Great communication here from Walking Stick to each other. But USA really pushing on this fight back now. Good evasion from blue, but needs to get some more points on the board.
Right. Final round of these two teams, so it's Walking Stick versus Universe A. That was quite frankly a nail biter. I remember watching that live, and the cheering in the crowd at the end there was quite something. Okay, so looking at the game again, stats-wise, before the start, you're looking at what did they choose. So Universe A just changed it up slightly, and I think it actually panned out for them. So the first thing they did was they increased their charge rate again. So we had a couple of guys in their team that had 4 charge, and they also had somebody in their team take 2 points in shields, which we will discuss in a minute, but I think might have been a turning point. And again, I think this was a good example of a game that came down to how much pressure you're exerting on the team. Looking at what Walking Stick did, they didn't change their tactics from the previous rounds, which is not necessarily the end of the world because they won it. And I think that Universe A just applied a bit more pressure than maybe the Walking Sticks did in the beginning.
Yeah, I think you're right. That taking shields definitely played through. The early shield that Universe A put up, it did seem to throw Walking Stick a little bit.
Yeah.
You can see almost like that little less experience from Walking Stick there. Instead of focus firing that shield to just get rid of it and carry on with the game, they actually started trying to move around it and fire around it, which allowed Universe A's players to basically calm down a little, get that position,
get some breathing,
get some points on, get some more points on the board. And it was breathing space that Walking Stick really didn't want to give to Universe A, and that shield, both of the shields effectively as when they dropped in through the game, just slowed everything down a bit, broke up the momentum that Walking Stick was starting to get, and allowed Universe A to pull back. And I think focus fire on the shields would have got rid of them very rapidly. They weren't particularly strong shields. But Walking Stick tried to go around them instead of getting rid of them.
I think there's something to be said there as well. So it's worth mentioning on the shields that they become brighter the stronger the shield is. So if you put 5 points into your shields and have a really strong shield, not only do you get 5 shields, but you also in the round, but you also make it really strong. And I think what could have happened is they saw a slightly brighter shield going down, realised it was more powerful than a normal level 1 shield, but possibly didn't realise how powerful it was. And so I think maybe they started trying to go around it as an attempt to we don't know that's an unknown. Let's try and move around it. Actually, more the experienced teams would have seen that's not that strong. We'll take that out really quickly. And actually, it's an interesting one. If you take a shield out really quickly, the person behind it is normally thinking they're safe, gets knocked out as well. So that would have been quite a good thing. But as you say, they gave Universe A basically an opening to have a bit of a relaxed shooting position, at which point that came back to bite them. At the same time, both teams taking it down to the wire. It could have gone either way in the end.
Yeah, very much so.
It was a very close game, and to be honest, it was a good game to watch.
Yeah, I think the other takeaway from this Walking Stick, their overall movement was good, but there was very little active dodging.
Yes.
They were moving quickly, they were making themselves hard targets, but Universe A are known for their accuracy, they're known for being able to predict ahead of where you're going to, and without any active dodging in there, I think basically the movement on its own wasn't enough. And I think a little bit of active dodging in there, or a bit more variation in pattern of movement, if they're not going to necessarily actively dodge, just trying to make themselves a hard target. But given the experience between the two teams, that was an incredible third round match. So easily could have gone either way. But congratulations to Universe A for taking the final round.
Yeah, 100%.
Red versus blue. So, Banana Soup from Brighton in red. BC Griffins, our new after school team, in blue. You see a lot more movement from the Griffins there. Lots of advice coming from their coach just to the edge of the pitch there. First point on for the Griffins. Nice shield defence up. Let's see if they can actually use that to any great effect. Second shield up. Oh, they're limiting the Banana Soup ability to score at the moment. And second point on the board for the Griffins there. So Banana Soup are most certainly favourites in this match. It's going to be interesting to see what the lads from the Griffins can do. At this point, I believe they've had 4 after-school sessions worth of training. So significantly less experienced than Banana Soup, but nonetheless, points on the board against those teams is always going to be a good thing. Remember, if you're liking what you see here, make sure you hit the subscribe button while you're on the stream. And if you want to get involved in the sport of Hado, just as these lads have here, it's great work there, especially given the experience difference between the two teams. Really, really good play from the Balsall Common Griffins, and a kill scored on each one of the Banana Soup team.
Right, guys, we're on to game 4, I think. Set 1, and what we've got is, in blue, we've got the Balsall Common Griffins, and in red, we've got Banana Soup. So a bit about the teams. The Balsall Common Griffins are quite a new team. They've actually been coming to an after-school club at the Balsall Common site. And most of them have been only sort of maybe 4 or 5 sessions so far.
I think it's 3 or 4.
3 or 4. Okay, but they are getting trained by some quite good coaches. So it will be interesting to see what happens there. They are quite young again because it's a sort of a younger group. The Banana Soup, however, are a very good team. They've been training for quite a long time down at Brighton with IDK and the boss, who you've not seen yet, but are another very good team down at Brighton. So they are a very experienced team. They have placed well in previous tournaments that we've run. And again, they're a bit older. They're still relatively young in the grand scheme of things, but they're quite an experienced team. So yeah, that's why it ended up potentially being as one-sided as it did. Stat-wise, there was some interesting stuff here actually. So first of all, Banana Soup went with a shield tactic. So player number 2 taking 5 in shields. Straight away, that's going to have given them advantage, because on the opposite side, the Balsall Common Griffins mostly built for a shootout, and they had low charge rates, which isn't a problem if you get a straight shootout with the other team, because they're going for speed and accuracy and things like that. The downside was because the Banana Soup pulled a shield out, they didn't actually have the charge rate to be able to deal with it, or the shields to be able to deal with it.
No, but you've got to be fair to the Griffins, though. The shields from Banana Soup didn't stay up anywhere near as they could have done. So there was definite focused fire tactics coming
100%.
from them. They knew what to do about the shields.
They just didn't have the
charge rate to be able to get rid of them rapidly and take advantage away from Banana Soup.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, had Banana Soup not had the shield stuff, what would happen, because I still think Banana Soup would have probably taken it based on what we've seen in the match, but I think the Griffins might have got a few more points on the board. And as you say, like, they, even in the situation they had, they didn't stop and they kept going, which is an important part of the sport. You've got to try and take your opportunities where you can, and they were knocking the shields down despite having a low charge rate.
Yeah, and there were a couple of good shields from the Griffins themselves.
Yes,
which just bought themselves a little bit of time, a little bit of breathing space mid-match. So, given how inexperienced the Griffins are, it's been their first ever tournament, and only
and being unlucky on the stat build,
unlucky on the stat build.
Yeah.
Only a few hours really of training.
They actually did really well.
Yeah, I think they equipped themselves quite well, given the difference in experience and skill there.
Yep, no, 100%. Don't disagree with anything like that. I don't see anything else that jumps out in the stats that was particularly. All I would say is Banana Soup's shooters are both very accurate. To be fair, actually, player 4 on the Balsall Common Griffins also actually got a good high accuracy, getting some knockouts as well. So there was some good play from both sides there.
Okay, go look at round 2.
Things can do for us. Or it's going to be Banana Soup all the way. Four-point opener there for Banana Soup. 5-point opener. So 20 seconds in. Some heavy-duty shields there on the centre line, holding the fire from the at bay. See if the lads can dig in and get some points on the board. Well, definitely landing hits. Just haven't got that first KO yet. There's life markers there, slowly being whittled down on Banana Soup. Got to get rid of all 4 tags to get that point. Dead central will get you the point in one shot, otherwise you just got to take them down as you go. 20 seconds left to play. Oh, it's looking like a very, very strong win here for Banana Soup. It's lovely to see a point on the board for the Griffins. 10 seconds to play. And Griffins are on the board! They've got a huge amount of support from the audience here. Definite love of the underdogs going on. Well, that's 18 points to 1 for Banana Soup. And that's them winning both of their opening matches.
Okay, so that was match 2 there, the Boscombe Griffins versus Banana Soup. So, what we saw was a bit of shift in play from the teams there, but I don't think things went the way that Griffins would have liked there. It looked like they got hit by some very fast, aggressive play, lost that momentum edge, and and that way it can do, especially with the experiences, the plan kind of went out the window.
Yeah, I mean, clearly their plan... So, again, they were getting some coaching, I think, between games. So, the guy in question probably told them that they needed to change it up. What they did stats-wise to change it up was one of the players took shield 5 with the intention of presumably putting some shields up to give them some breathing room. They also had one of their players go charge 4, which is not a bad idea as well, because it means you can take some of their shields down. They were obviously planning for the fact that the Banana Soup were going to do the same tactic. Banana Soup did. I think just unfortunately they got sort of hit very hard at the beginning, and I think it's very difficult at times like that, especially when you're new to the sport and they're not very experienced, to actually keep your plan in mind. And when you, for example, try and raise a shield and you get knocked out and it doesn't work, you generally move on to trying to shoot. So it was quite late, I think, in the game where they actually started deploying their shields, and by that point it was probably a bit too late.
I mean, basically you could see them that unfortunately Griffins got forced onto the back wall with that early aggression from Banana Soup. Banana Soup got those nice angled shields up on the front line, giving really good sniping and firing positions where they could pin the Griffins back on their back wall. They clumped together, they lost all the movement options, and it just basically they sort of grumbled a bit there. And it was just really that experience coming through.
It's one of those things in the sport that people don't get. When you play it, pressure is a big thing, and in that situation, the amount of stuff that's going on in front of them, coming at them, it's very difficult to lose focus. And I think that's basically what happened. As you say, they got clumped together and then started getting picked off by Banana Soup, who pulled it off very well.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, as you said, the stats they took were right.
Yes,
they made the right choices. That was purely an experience issue. However, the fact that they're making those right choices, also get a bit more confidence under the belt.
They'll be able to execute
bit more training, few more of the sort of the local matches. I don't think they're going to be doing badly at all.
No, not at all. And again, like the key thing, it sounds silly, but they're carrying on playing and trying to get knockouts all the way through the game. And it's very easy to get disheartened, but actually you've got to keep moving, you've got to keep shooting, no matter how bad you're losing. Like fundamentally, it's the only way you can do it all well in the sport is just keep going, and they did. So longer term, if they keep playing and improving as they are, I think they'll stand a good chance to beating some people later on.
Yep. Okay, then. Let's go.
Shadow Cadets in blue versus RGN Blades in red. Blues being seen as the underdogs here already by the crowd. Oh, beautiful opening shot there from Blue. Perfect one-shot kill in the opening second there. Let's see if they can keep this up. Great movement from Blues. Slight slip, but it got him out of being hit. 1 point apiece now. But 20 seconds played. I think RGN being a little taken back by quite the ferocity of the attack here from Shadow Cadet, sorry. 2 points to 1, 3 points to 1. Five points to 3. 5 points to 4. Looks like might have a slight issue there from one of the Shadow Cadets, but the rest of the team are definitely holding their own either way. As long as you can keep evading. Six points all, 5 seconds to play. Great evasion there, 2 seconds. And Shadow Cadets take the first game, 7 points to 6.
Alright guys, so next up that was a game between on the blue team as Shadow Cadets and on the red team RGN Blades. So a bit of background on both teams. I'll start with RGN. They are an RAF team, so they're part of the RAF's esports division. and they are made up of a group of players that are a bit sparse. Sometimes they'll have people that are deployed, so they have to kind of get people where they can and make up a sort of mismatched team when they can come. But they are a good team.
Yeah, so we've seen quite a lot of different teams come from the RF esports division.
Yep.
There's quite a large percentage of RF personnel that are part of the esports division, which are sort of a charity element within the RAF, but it's there as part of their wellness and fulfillment program, but also there because there's an awful lot of transferable skills from esports to a lot of elements of modern warfare. And both the Navy and the Army also have active esports divisions within them. So the guys who are here for the tournament have all played before. They are all experienced players, not necessarily played as a three previously though. And normally we would see 2 or 3 RAF teams. However, the tournament clashed with national selection for their Call of Duty team. So
bit of competition.
A bit of competition for where they were this weekend.
That's fair. On the opposite side, we've got the Shadow Cadets. Again, I'm not going to let him talk too much about these guys because he will be slightly biased because the 2 young lads in that team are actually his sons. They are, again, a bit of a mismatched team. They've not played together before this tournament, I believe. They have all played, however, and they've played in teams. Some of them have got varying levels of skills. Actually, the youngest one, Tom, is probably the youngest player in the tournament, and equally is probably one of the more experienced players in the tournament because he plays a lot. Which I think will come out. I mean, you'll see it in this game. So that being said, let's move on with seeing how they did. Stats-wise, sort of choices that they made before the game. I think Shadow Cadets made some sort of standard choices. They went for a shooting tactic. They had one person with charge 4, again being ready to counter a shield tactic, which kind of came in handy in this game because the RGN went for a shield tactic. I think RGN made maybe a mistake in their stat build. So they had player 1 was doing shields at 5, brilliant. Player 2 had 5 scale. And 3 charge and 1 speed. Now the downside of that is it is very difficult to hit people with that. The 5 scale kind of allows you to do almost flak on the field, and it's good for pushing people around or things like that. If you've got a shield tactic as well, the only downside is you've kind of taken away one of your players' ability to shoot well and hit targets that are dodging. And the kids they were against, I think maybe they thought they weren't going to dodge or move, and they were mistaken because they did.
Yeah, a lot of very good movement. I mean, fair, both teams were moving a lot. Yeah. But the movement from Shadow Cadets, I think, very much took RGN by surprise.
Yes.
They weren't expecting to be that mobile, both in their general movement and fairly good in their active dodging as well.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I think that was a choice potentially because of that. They maybe looked at them and thought these guys aren't going to move so much. We can get away with having scale 5, which does make it easy to knock somebody out if they're not dodging. But if somebody is dodging, it's almost impossible to hit them. That being said, there was some stuff with the shields as well that was quite interesting. We could see what they were trying to do, where they were putting them. Basically, if you put them up on the front left and the front right of the court, that's sometimes a very good position. I would say that the player that was trying to do that was potentially a bit inexperienced because some of the positions he was putting were a bit too far forwards, and that was allowing the other team to get behind them.
A few that were a bit flat, and definitely one that we saw there on the right hand side that was much too far forwards, and allowed the front guard from Shadow Cadets to literally be able to step behind it and just fire straight behind it for knockouts.
I mean, it's actually good. Again, I'm blowing their trumpets for you, but it's generally really good play actually from the Shadow Cadets because finding that opportunity to get behind a front shield that's in front of you is really difficult because your line, especially when you're on the front, your positional awareness has to be on point to be able to know that actually I can get behind that, still fire a shot, and not be across the line into the opposite team's half. What happens if you cross the line to the opposite team's half is you can't actually fire, and they can still shoot you. So it's a massive downside. So the fact he managed to find that little bit of space to get around it was actually really good.
There's also quite a nice bit from both sides. In that, obviously, that very opening move there, Shadow Cadets get a straight KO on the RGN shielder, which obviously knocks their tactics back slightly, but they come back into the game very rapidly, get the shields up in position, get back on with their game plan. Now, that does put an awful lot of pressure on Shadow Cadets. We see the RGN Blades basically stepping up the point scoring there and starting to move away with the game, and you generally expect at that point that once they've got the momentum going, that it's going to be their game, and Shadow Cadets fight back really well. There's a very good focus fire and basically getting rid of those shields,
down,
move them out of the way, and then they fight back literally down to that last second to get the win against RGM Blades.
It was genuinely interesting to watch a game with some of the younger competitors, but actually such a tactical game as well. It was really well played on both teams, and it was quite a close game. So yeah, hopefully we're going to get more good games out of them.
Yeah, so let's have a look at match 2.
Perfect.
All the way to the 3-game limit here. So, can RGN Blades pull this back, or are Shadow Cadets going to give us a surprise outcome here? First point on the board there for RGN Blades. Heavy use of shields, but Shadow Cadets are on the scoreboard with 1 point apiece. 2 points to 1. Heavy shield tactic from RGN Blades does not seem to be paying the dividends that you hoped. Good heavy fire there coming from RGN Blades, putting themselves 1 point ahead. Great communication from RGN as well, but Shadow Cadets most certainly fighting back. 5 points to 4 here, 6 points to 4. Still very much any team's game here. Just 1 point in it. And Shadow Cadets have pulled it back to even with 30 seconds to play. Now can Shadow Cadets start to do anything with this lead? Just 1 point. 2 point lead now. 1 point lead again. RGN fighting it back. It's going to go right down to the wire. 12 seconds, 10 seconds to play. Three points in it. 4 points in it. And it's a second win for Shadow Cadets.
So that was our second match there between RGM Blades and Shadow Cadets, and as I said during the match commentary, I can't help but be pleased with that result. Yeah,
that's fair. Yeah, so it was an interesting game. Obviously, we'll talk about what happened. Stats-wise, nothing much changed from the first time. There was a couple of minor differences that were people trying to adapt, and actually we'll talk about in a minute some of the adaptations that people made from the first game to the second one. But so generally speaking, not a lot different. Player 3 on the red team, so RGM, decided to take speed 4, and that's clearly because he was finding it difficult to hit people that were moving so quick, so he chose to increase his speed a little bit, and I think that paid out for him. He managed to get a bit more accuracy. On the opposite side, no major differences from the Shadow Cadets. I still think they made the floor. They've got the same guys doing scale 5, which he's going to find it difficult to hit people with. But yeah, then I think we're into the actual gameplay. The Shielder did a good thing at the start, I think. Yeah,
basically, after that first match where they took the Shadow Cadets took out the RGN Shielder in a straight one-shot kill right at the start and knocked the attacks off kilter. Here, as he's coming to put that first shield up, he jumps. And does go clear over that opening shot. So it was exactly the right thing to do. Gets that first shield up in place, and then things start to go a bit odd because he puts a second shield up for no readily apparent reason.
They did the same thing in the first game, and I don't know whether So again, it's worth understanding how shields work. Once you put a shield up, they have a certain amount of health. And as time goes by, they degrade their health over time. So as it goes on, they become weaker. So generally, raising a shield on top of another shield kind of wastes a bit of health. So that may have shown a bit of an experience understanding how they work. The key point, actually, I think, is his third shield that he tries to put up goes a bit wrong as well. Because as he moves across the pitch, he's trying to keep his arm straight down. And that's what you need to be to charge your shield before you put it up. And as he moves across, he's being quite quick. And I think he lost his arm position. So when he actually then goes to raise it, it's not working. And so again, you just need to slow down a little bit and basically pace yourself, and you can then get there and put your shield up. Other than that, there were some really good, as I say, changes in the way that he was playing.
The other aspect there that definitely came across was that the RGM player 3, he was the player who was meant to be basically capitalising on those shield positions, and he was stood a long way back from the shields. And if you've got a shield there, there's no reason to stand back. And all that standing back is doing for you is opening distance between you and the opposing team, giving them more time to dodge, more time to realise the shots coming in. The shield was there on the front line. He should have been right up there with him, capitalising on it. And again, that's part of, I think, what both opened him up to cross shots, because he was further back, and also made it easier for Shadow Cadets to stay out the way of those shots.
I mean, a special mention has to go to fundamentally player 6, which is again the youngest player in the whole tournament, and Tom. He got 9 knockouts, and he's their front player. right, which is the position which you're under the most pressure. Now, it does mean if you can get to a good position and you can get a cross shot, you're in a really good position to get knockouts because people can't see it coming in from their flank. And as you say, the RGN team were giving him an opportunity to do that, and he took those opportunities when he had them. But again, he did a phenomenal, I can't even say it, an amazing job in that game, managing to get so many knockouts and just keep the pressure on RGN. And they just couldn't cope with it, basically.
And it was that cross shot element.
Yes. Because you can't see it.
Yeah, one, you can't see it, but he was being given the opportunity to do it by RGN not actually moving up into position properly on their shields, just being too far back from them, which opened them up to those cross shots. Had they been further forward, their shields would have given them much better protection. He'd have had a much harder time putting that pressure on them and getting those points.
100%. Again, it's all tactical problems that was from the get-go, because having another player where you've only got one player that's doing your shooting, it's a bit unfair on that player in some ways because the pressure's all on that person.
Yeah.
Like, they have to get all the knockouts, and fundamentally, if you've then got knocked out from the side, you can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the two teams, both good and accurate, lots of motion, really good play. And
had some good ideas.
But both are good ideas, and it was RGN Blades lost this on tactics rather than gameplay.
Yeah, 100%. Good match though.
Yeah.
SAS Ninjas in blue versus Sanarol in red. Rapid openers there from SAS Ninjas. 4 points to nothing. That's the first 10 seconds. Wow. So SAS are seriously going for rapid points here. But points on the board for Sanarol, with the standard underdog cheers going on. Don't think SAS Ninjas are planning on allowing Sanarol in the game at all. Having seen what Fighting Mongooses achieved here, they know that there's every chance they may well be on a point score split against Fighting Mongooses for advancement to the semi-finals. So they're going to look to draw every point they can out of this match. 20 seconds to play. Two more points on the board there for Sanarol. 10 seconds to play. Match result is not really in any question at this point, but Sanarol still fighting it out there. Great to see him going right down to the wire.
Alright guys, next up we've got an interesting match. It's between SAS Ninjas that you guys have already seen in blue against Sanarol in red. Now, just to reiterate, Sanarol, a very new team, came together that day, very inexperienced players. They've only got one player really who's played much before. SAS Ninjas, experienced players, very experienced players. Again, newish team, but they've all played with decent players before. There was some interesting stuff in this one. Despite the score being so big, actually there was a lot going on. So the first thing I want to talk about stats, but also something that happened before the game that actually was relevant for the game. So you've got a lot of shooting stats going in from SAS Ninjas. They've got high speed, sort of lower charge rates and things like that, because I think they felt confident that they were going to get some knockouts. They'd seen the other team play, but they're really maximising their ability to knock people out. Separately, Sanarol did go for a shield build. Now, interestingly, what happened at the very start of the game, before it starts, when you enter the game, you basically press an enter button on your wrist piece once you set your stats. You were then visible to the other team, and you can test out your stats. The problem is, if you've pressed enter, the other team can see what you're doing. So one of the Sanarol team unfortunately put their shield up at the start to test their shield out, and basically gave away to the opposite team that they were doing a shield strategy. But not only that, who it was on their team was doing the shield strategy. And if you watch the opening seconds of the game, the SAS Ninjas know who it is that's got the shield, and they knock them out straight away. They then proceed to keep that person knocked out.
Yeah, literally every time they come back in the game, they all focus fire straight onto her to keep her locked out of the game, to prevent those shields being raised. Yeah. Because of the big tactical error by Sanarol, get a very, very experienced team to raise that shield before game, give away the fact that we're using shield tactic and who the shielder was. Yeah, SAS just capitalised on it.
What I would say, it was actually very brave of SAS Ninjas to do it that way. And the reason is, if you see that go up, what often it's very tempting to do is drop out of the game and take somebody to put a shield up yourself or take a high charge rate. They didn't do that in this game. And the reason is again, a bit more in depth, is because they're up against the fighting mongooses in the same pool. And it might come down to a points difference depending on who wins which games. They clearly came into this game with the intention of getting as many points as they could against a team they knew that they could get points against. And if you watch every element of the game, from them playing at the front line to the way they chose their stats, that was what they were aiming to do.
It was that very aggressive opening from them coming through, and that forward and back motion between coming forward to fire, stepping back to regain charge, which gives you that capacity to dodge, because you're a little bit further out, and when you've gained a stack of charge, moving forward to launch volley fire. Yeah,
it was a brilliant game, great to watch, and well played. SS Ninjas, you did brilliantly.
Yeah, and to be fair to Sanarol, in that last third of the game, was they did manage to start getting a couple of shields up.
Yeah.
Then they fought back, got some points on the board, so it wasn't totally one-sided.
100%.
But that domination breaker on the shield play at the start really paid out for SAS.
Really effective, and hopefully it will help SAS moving forward in the competition, because they did get a very good points victory there. In fact, like I was saying while watching the game, I think they intentionally sacrificed their dodging ability. They were focused so heavily on shooting that they were willing to give up a few knockouts here and there, trying not to, but give a few knockouts here and there just to get so many points on the board, which is potentially a very good idea.
Okay, let's look at round 2.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go, game 2. Again, the expectation is that SAS Ninjas are going to be going all out for point score here, because they're going to need everything they can get to split themselves away from fighting mongooses to put that chance at the second, to the semi-final places. Good shield use there from Sanarol to start things off. SAS Ninjas can work around that shield quite well. That's the shield down, another shield up. Fortunately, not a great angle there on the Sanarol shield. SAS Ninjas to be able to get on line of fire behind that. Looks like they're just going for the choice of taking shields down. So if shields go up, you've got 3 options. You can either try and batter straight through them and straight fire. You can place a shield of your own directly in front of it to negate its benefit to the other team, or try and get an angle to shoot behind it. So 20 points to play, 20 seconds played. Still no. I think the outcome of this match is pretty much set. But let's see what Sanarol can do so get some more points on the board there. Beautiful one-shot kill on Shemai in the centre. Sarah and Ash there from SAS Ninjas managed to keep the ball rolling. So 20 point to 6 win for SAS Ninjas.
So, match 2, Sanarol versus SAS. Different pattern there.
Yep.
Interesting to see the sort of shift up, but I think one of the big things there was there wasn't that pre-match slip up again.
Yeah. They actually, to be fair, right, so again, talking about stats, they did similar tactics, both teams. There was a couple of slight differences, but the Sanarol still did a shield tactic. But the key thing that you just referenced is they actually changed the person who was doing the shields to the more experienced player, but also they didn't give away who it was. And I think if you watched SAS's opening, they shot the person they thought had the shields, and they didn't. And so Sanarol managed to actually get some good shields up at the start. Yeah,
I mean, it's a shame that they didn't manage to capitalise on with an early point score.
Yeah,
but they were good shields. I think it slowed down SS's initial impact into the game, gave a little bit more breathing space to them. But surprising that they actually scored the points once they've run out the shields rather than whilst they had the shields.
Yeah,
to give them the leeway to score the points.
They did, yeah. So it was interesting. So again, the other interesting to see from the stats as well was that SAS decided to take some points out of speed of their shots and add it into charge rate. And I think part of the reason for that is that there's two parts to that really. One, they wanted to make sure they had energy in case they did start missing the shields, which came in handy because they did. But then the other element of that was I think they were confident in their ability to hit people with a speed of 3 because the dodging from Sanral was a bit slower than maybe they were expecting originally. So they coped with it well, but as you can see, I mean, the points difference in that game to the first game was massively different. And actually, Sanral, absolute credit to you guys, because you kept cool under pressure. And again, there was some points being scored against some pretty good players. You can dodge really well. Like there was a couple of times you saw one knocked out, you know, a guy that I would normally expect to dodge it. And so there was good play there from both teams, but again, obviously SAS, who we do expected to win it, did, although they didn't get as many points as maybe they'd have wanted. Otherwise, it was a pretty good game.
Yep. Right.
Keep moving on.
Okay, so it's IDK on the red side and Fighting Mongooses on the blue. So let's see how they do. IDK with the first points on the board there. Mongooses yet to score. Good shield on shield tactics there. Blocking out IDK's shield defences. Yep, IDK is one of the shields, straight one of the Mongooses shields. 5-0 as we approach the halfway line. And Fighting Mongooses are on the board. Let's see if they can start to get some momentum going here. Clipping away at those life markers on IDK, but not able to just get a full 4-point takedown. Still chipping away. There we go, second point on the board for Fighting Mongooses. Third point. 4-point lead now for IDK. 10 seconds to play, 6-point lead. Unlikely Mongoose is going to pull it back in this half, but every point counts.
Alright guys, next up is quite an exciting game. We've got the Fighting Mongooses in blue and IDK in red. Now, just a reminder, IDK are the best team in the UK before this tournament. They were the UK champions from the previous year, and they're very good. That being said, Fighting Mongooses are a good team and have played them before. And I know that the Fighting Mongooses, before these matches, have been spending lots of time studying IDK and trying to find out weaknesses. Mm-hmm. It was a really interesting match. Stats wise, this is a very good example of a shield versus shield battle. So both teams taking shield 5 with one of their players. What I would say is both did it in the same build as well, which is it's a very optimum build for doing it, where you take 1 speed, 1 scale, 3 charge and 5 shield. And actually, when it comes to shielding, a lot of people think that your main job is just put shields up and that's it. You've actually got 2 other things you've got to be doing at the same time. One of those is tapping at the other shields on the opposite team to keep them down. And then the third bit is actually being really good at dodging, because you can't really hit the opposite team. What you can do is draw fire away from the shields you're putting up to protect your teammates. And there's a lot of that in this game.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, it's pretty much a shield masterclass in the way they're both using them.
Yeah.
We see good shield usage from IDK to start off with, great counter shielding from Mongooses, and then as the momentum shifts and Mongooses go to being the primary shield raiser, then really good counter shield tactics coming out from IDK as well.
Yeah.
So that raising of a shield directly in front of a shield, what that does is it basically denies the shield, stops it being of any use whatsoever. Because you can't shoot through it anymore because you're just hitting straight into the opposing team's shield.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. So, like the way you said it there is perfect. So basically, IDK went out the gate with the shields. Now, it's worth noting IDK don't often do shield tactics. This was the first tournament where I think we've seen them properly use it. Paris, who's their number 3 player, I think it is not normally doing what he was doing this game. He put up some shields in really good positions, allowed his team to get forward. Mongooses immediately started countering with shields in front. The point where Paris realised that, though, what he did was he slowed down his pace on raising the shields, and what the aim then was to outlast the other team's shields with your shields. You want to be the last one up with shields, because the longer you can keep protected, the better you're doing. Separately, the rest of his team did an amazing job at getting shots around the shields. So whilst they were winning the shield battle, they were also winning the shootout battle. So even if they had lost the shield war and lost their shields first, they'd have still been in a good position to actually win the match, which they won both ways. That saying, mongooses amazing play. Like to be able to actually play counter shield tactics is very difficult because it doesn't come up very often in competition, so you can't practice it that much. And both teams did a really good job at actually trying to counter with their own shield play.
Yeah, I think the other bit with this that comes through is you've got a trap that IDK, if you're given with this build, basically to fight against IDK, because they're so good at dodging, you need high speed.
Yes.
But if you've got high speed, you haven't got a high charge rate.
Yeah.
So now IDK are adding this element in here, and they're putting you as a team in a position where you've got to choose: do you take either heavy shields or
high charge rate
to try and deal with the shields that IDK are putting up? But if you're doing that,
they can still dodge.
You haven't got the speed to hit them when they're dodging.
Yeah.
And if you're taking the speed to hit them when they're dodging, you can't deal with the shields correctly.
Yeah. It's a fine line, yeah.
You can split your build across your team, but it's making it much harder to go against them because there's no clear set of tactics that you can work with.
Yeah.
And of course, now they've demonstrated, as they demonstrated here, that they can use these shield tactics really well, and they've demonstrated in previous tournaments that they're great at just straight out firepower.
Yep.
They haven't got a set piece tactic in any way anymore.
Yeah.
And so you're really having to you're up against it when you're going against them. You just don't know what they're going to pull out the bag now.
It's an interesting one because Paris has basically clearly switched there into what we call a technician role, and a technician role is all about controlling the battlefield space and slowing or speeding up the gameplay. And generally they're the people that are doing that shield tactic, or they're doing the high charge rate and things like that. Again, it's a difficult one. We've not seen IDK pushed in this game. We don't know. Is actually, if you took charge 5, going to do you any better? Chances are not really, because they're still really good at dodging. So it's a really tough one. And fundamentally, we'll see if anyone's got an answer to it, and if mongooses can come back in the next game.
Okay, let's go look at round 2.
Here we go. So, round 1. Round 2. Well, Rebellion's, I'm already losing the plot. Here we go. First points on the board very early there for IDK. Can mongooses get any momentum going in this match? Shield up again from mongooses. Interesting to see no counter shield this time from IDK though. Right, they've shifted their tactics to the second round. Good work there from both teams. IDK's slide moves though, dropping them underneath a lot of the mongooses' shots. 4-point lead here, 3-point lead now at the 30-second mark. Can mongooses try and pull anything back here? Theoretically still possible, but unlikely against a team like IDK. 20 seconds to play. Cross shots there coming into mongooses, taking down their ability to keep any kind of forward fire going. Just too much speed and manoeuvrability there from IDK. Mongooses putting up a great fight, but IDK showing why they're the current UK champions.
So it was a really good second match. Again, IDK is showing why they're the reigning UK champions. But a really interesting flip on the tactics and the stats there.
It was actually, yeah. So obviously, first round we had 2 shield tactics going against each other, if that makes sense. This time round, starting with the mongooses, they stuck with their shield plan. They had a person doing shields. What they also did was take a higher charge rate, and it goes back to the thing we actually said about the trap previously, where because 2 of them have also taken charge 4, they've got less points into the speed and the scouts. It actually makes it difficult to hit stuff. But they were clearly preparing for if IDK did the same tactic from the first round, and they had no reason to think they wouldn't. IDK, however, didn't do the same tactic from the first round, and they just went straight shootout. And I think partly the reason they did that was because they thought, actually, we can win in a straight shootout even if you put shields up. We were able to get some points around your shield in the previous game. We're good at dodging, and it actually really worked out for them because the mongooses now didn't have the stats to actually manage to hit them. And IDK basically did a masterclass on, we'll beat you even if you use a tactic that theoretically is quite sound.
Yeah, I mean, it was that tactical shift. They basically lured mongooses into assuming that we're going to play in a certain way.
And then they didn't.
They didn't at all. They completely flipped it on its head.
Yeah.
And once you've gone into that element of the higher charge rate and shields, basically when you put those shields up, you've got to earn points because you've put everything into
Earning points at that moment.
Basically earning points off from behind your shields.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, because of the slower speed, they couldn't get those hits on IDK. The shields went up. They didn't earn the points.
Yep.
IDK focus fired on the shields, got rid of them, and once the shields were down and gone, they got nothing left. There was no way they were going to catch the IDK players in any meaningful way. With those slower speed and smaller shots.
There was a few tactics coming out again, actually, that I'd like to point out that IDK did, which was very clever. So Paris, who's their technician, as we call it, in this round, was just playing a straight shooter. But what he did do was he played around the front line a lot. And again, IDK moved around the pitch very well. But he was specifically trying to draw fire. He's very good at dodging. And he was freeing up who, in that round, was the star player of IDK, which is Milo, who got, 10 knockouts? Knocked out twice, and he was freed up because Paris was doing some obvious stuff on the front line to then be getting lots of knockouts. The other thing with him, he's also very good at dodging, so they're good across the board.
And one of the bits we got from him was he'd gone really top end on his speed there, speed 5,
Yes.
And he wasn't just targeting ahead of him. He was allowing basically Paris to draw a lot of attention at the front, and then Milo was cross-shotting, basically angling shots across the course to hit players on their blind side, so they weren't seeing the shots coming, and they were just coming screaming across the pitch at that speed with those speed 5.
It's the definition of an assassin in the sport is that basically he's just knocking people out with sniping shots, which they couldn't really do anything about, and he had the capacity to do that because his teammates were giving him that space. That being said, again, mongooses did their best in the circumstance. Their shield play was on point. They just didn't, unfortunately, get the points during that moment because the IDK were doing such a good job dodging. Good game.
It was a win for tactics.
It was a tactical game with two teams that can play quite well.
All right, next game.
So here we go. Restart now on the first round. Universe A in blue versus Boss in red. One point increase. Said both teams know each other's tactics pretty well. Both teams have been putting a lot of training in on the move up to this tournament as well. Boss and shield tactics doing them well for the moment. Universe A really need to start punching their way through those shields. Significant points lead for the boss here. 4 points, but still maintain that 5-point lead. Four-point lead still in there, 15 seconds to play. Universe A fighting back now. Looks like the boss's shields are gone. Or at least their decent strength ones are. £10 points to 6. Boss take match 1, but it is only match 1 of potential 3.
Alright guys, so next up we've got a team you won't have seen yet because one of the teams that was due to play had to pull out, so they didn't have a team in the first sort of set of pool game, but it is on the red team we've got Boss, and then on the blue team we've got Universe A that you have seen before. So again, a bit of background on Boss. They are training partners, effectively, of IDK. So they get to play with some really good teams. Them, Banana Soup and IDK train quite a lot together. So they are a good team. They're a bit younger than IDK. Again, they've got a fair amount of experience in some good tournaments. They've done a few UK Championships and things. Universe A, again, experienced team, really good shooting. Has done well against IDK in the past, not necessarily beaten them, but been doing a good job. So there's some interesting stat choices. Basically, let's start with the Boss. They went for, and they do this tactic a lot. If you see them at tournaments, this is a similar thing that they do all the time.
solid set piece set of tactics.
Yeah.
To fair to them, they work,
They
but
do,
they
yeah.
don't tend to have a huge amount of variety in their tactical play.
Yeah, but what they basically did was they set up with what is effectively an assassin, so somebody who's got a high speed and a sort of lower scale and charge, but to try and get those knocks out. They've got a defender, so somebody who's putting shields up that they all then utilise in a what we call basically the best description we've had is like it's a tail behind the shield and they're moving with it, and then they have a technician who's there to in case the enemies start putting shields up and things like that to be able to deal with it.
Yeah, so one of the things they do, which is very different to the shield use teams, most shield use teams try and put those shields up on the front line,
Yeah.
so that their players can be right behind them, and try and reduce the distance between them and the opposing players to maximise the number of hits. Boss set theirs a couple of metres back off the centre line and right in the middle of the pitch. And the reason they do that is because it allows their whole team to be able to get behind it, whilst giving very minimal cross-shot options.
Yeah.
And they've got this tail wag technique where the whole team sort of moves behind the shield to constantly cut down those angles of firing.
Yeah.
And then all three are firing as a solid barrage together.
Yeah, so whoever it is they end up, so if they go sort of left and there's one poor player on the left hand side on the opposite team, that player's going to get a barrage of fire coming in because that's the threat to them at that point.
Yeah.
And the rest of the enemy team is cut off with their shield. And then again, if the enemy team tries to move around to get an angle, they'll just move back the other way. So it's a really nice tactic when it works. Interestingly, Universe A did the right thing to try and counter it. And again, I know they do a lot, that group specifically do a lot of prep to try and plan ahead to see what they think the other team's going to do. And in this case, I think where their plan fell apart was they had somebody with charge 5 in the player number 4, but unfortunately they weren't able to get it off the ground. They weren't firing enough shots. Whether they were having an issue with technique or just the amount of pressure that was going on, I don't know, but they didn't fire nearly as many shots as they need to. With charge 5, if everything goes according to plan, you can theoretically fire about 90 shots in a game, and they fired I think 30, and that was the thing that was not taking the shield down. And there was key moments where their team was trying to focus fire a shield down and they just weren't putting enough shots into it.
It's more the other two team members were quite heavily focused a lot of it on trying to shoot round the shield, trying to get those cross shots, get behind it.
Yeah.
But actually, because of where the Boss tend to put their shield, those cross shots are actually much harder to get than against a forward position shield, which is part of the reason they do it. I mean,
They were then focusing fire, but again, when the focus fire happened, it was without their main person who's doing the focusing fire. Should be doing the focus fire.
Yeah, I mean, had they kept focus fire on those shields, and just cut their way through them, I mean, we saw there towards the end when the Boss ran out those heavy duty shields, that USA started racking points up.
Yes.
And had they been able to break through that shield barrier earlier, really got the focus fire on it, then I think you could have a very different outcome to the match.
100%. And again, it was the right plan. Just the execution didn't happen.
Something went wrong with the execution.
Yeah.
Let's see if they learn for match 2.
Here we go then. Game 2. See if Universe A can pull this back. Two all at the start point here. 3-2. It was a great opening move there from Universe A getting those first 2 points. But they need to keep that momentum going against the Boss. Starting to get a good concentrated fire on the shields for the Boss there. Shields down. Now can Universe A pick this back up? Boss's core tactics are quite reliant on their shield defence. Another Boss shield down, but that strafing run there just cost Universe A. Great little run there from the Boss. That's a definitive win there from the Boss in the second game.
So, nice second game there. Obviously, the result's still very much in favour of the Boss, but some shifts in tactics there. It was nice to see the USA really got that focus fire going on that first shield that went up. Didn't let Boss get behind it at all, and then it was almost that Boss's whole game plan got knocked off kilter, and we saw shields go up in positions you wouldn't expect them to be.
It was interesting to watch, and I think the key thing it came down to was, as you say, getting the focus far down. So Universe A at the start, they did a couple of things. So they changed their charge ever so slightly, so they had 2 people with high charge rate. And I think they knew that in the first game that was a problem, so they adjusted by making sure that they had the stuff to deal with. At the same time, going back to the IDK thing, this is a similar trap that they did on the mongooses, where because now they've got a bunch of people with charge rate and not loads of shooting, it meant when they got to the shooting stage it was more difficult. But I think it was the right choice to make. And as you say, they focused fire. No massive changes from tactics from the boss, but as you say, when Universe A pressured them at the start and took their first shield down, you could see the boss basically almost freak out and their tactics start to fall apart. They ended up with a 2 shield either side tactic, which is not normal, but they then sort of calmed down a bit, got themselves composed, came back, switched back to their normal tactic.
Well,
and
got this sort of strafing run tactic that they're quite well known for.
Yes.
Where they loop around the front edge of the shields, and they did that again here several times, and it really sort of knocked the wind out of Universe A. Took the momentum back, allowed them to get their shield tactic back where they wanted it. And gain control of the game. Yeah,
it was good. It was good keeping cool under pressure. Like you could tell that they had a bit of a wobble, and then they got their head back in the game, got back down focused, and again they then put the pressure back on Universe A, which then started to feel the pressure themselves and maybe not get as many knockouts as they could have done, because Universe A can shoot. We know that they can hit things.
Yeah.
So
it also showed quite well once they had the shields taken down that yes, the boss tend to prefer using those shield tactics, but they can still dodge really well too. You've still got to hit them even if you do get rid of those shields. They're relatively small, they're fast.
They train with people who are good at dodging. Like their whole thing is they're good at lots of different stuff. Them Banana Super and IDK are all good at a wide variety of things, and it gives them lots of tools to try with. That being said, the boss are renowned for doing the same tactic every time, so it was good to see them being pushed to a position where they couldn't use it all the time, and then they sort of reverted back to using it later on. So good job from Universe A. Again, boss, good keeping calm under pressure, basically.
Yeah.
Good game.
Okay, let's go.
Here we go. Game 1. Bolsco and Griffins in blue versus Shadow Cadets in red. Oh, fantastic opening salvo there from Shadow Cadets. See if they can keep this momentum going. Well, the Bolsco and Griffins are going to be able to give them some fight back. Lovely return there from BC Griffins. Just a 1 point difference. Shield tactics coming up from both sides now. Shadow Cadets dodging well, keep themselves alive. BC Griffins unfortunately starting to clump into that back corner. Now clumping together is a big no-no. What it does is, all the opposition have to do now is just aim towards the mass of players, and they're pretty much always going to hit something useful. So staying separated from your teammates is really important. You can do that either by playing low and high, or by playing left, centre and right across the pitch. Lots of different options. Just avoid that clumping together as a group. Good work from Griffins though, in this fight all the way down to the end. Really good match there. Nice play from both teams, but game goes to Shadow Cadets.
Alright guys, next game. That was who we got. Blue team was the Borsal Common Griffins, and the red team was the Shadow Cadets. So both of these teams train in Borsal Common. Again, both relatively newish teams, but some more experienced than others. So Shadow Cadets are a far more experienced team. They've definitely had more play time. Borsal Common Griffins, to be fair, has done very well in this match for how much they've played and what they were up against. It was a good game.
Yeah, it's worth also noting that from the Shadow Cadets, some of them are also members of the after school club here, so our actual training partners.
Yes, that's true.
Borsco and Griffins.
Yeah, which is an interesting one, because actually when you train with somebody, you start to spot their patterns, and so if you come up against them in the tournament, you know roughly how they're going to dodge, and it gives you a bit of an advantage or a disadvantage because they might have the same thing back on you. Okay, so that's being said, let's look at some stats. Nothing like majorly outstanding here from a stat perspective. Both teams went for a kind of straight shootout. A couple of things I'd like to point out. You've got charge 4 and a couple of players on both teams, or one player on each team. Again, probably just ready in case they need to deal with a shield tactic if it comes out from the other team. The only one I will mention, and it's because he's such a good player, is young Tom on the Shadow Cadets consistently takes 2 shields. If you're watching this, stop taking 2 shields. He takes 2 shields, I think, partly to make him feel that he's got something to fall back on. But actually, he's a good enough player that he needs to put that point into shooting. He is by far the star player of that team at the moment. He's getting 10 knockouts and knocked out 4 times. Playing in the front position is a good position to get knockouts. It's also a good position to be knocked out. But basically, use that point somewhere else, get another bit of charge, and you'll get even more knockouts. Other than that, I mean, his accuracy in that game is 73%. On the opposite side, Balsacom Griffins, absolutely well played. You're up against a team that's pretty good, and you just consistently kept playing throughout.
Yeah. There was no point where they kind of gave up or anything else.
No, exactly.
Constant play.
Yeah, getting some knockouts.
Yeah, and they got points on the board. It was they didn't. They weren't being walked all over at all.
Yeah, 100%. The one thing I did like to see actually is that there was points where we'd sort of discussed it during the game. They were clumped together a little bit, and they were sort of almost pushed together with the amount of fire that's coming in. But they were managed to get themselves out of those positions, and the other team took advantage of those positions. But at the same time, they didn't then stay there. They kept moving, spreading out, and getting back into the positions where they're less of a valuable target, effectively.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's an experience element.
Yeah.
I mean, it is fair play to them. Once if you see the experienced team start to clump together, they do tend to stay clumped together from that point. Yeah. And the fact the Griffins realised they were in trouble, they were too close together.
And spread back out, yeah.
I know it's something that the coach has gone over them with in training, that it's a bad thing to have happen. They realise that, they spread back out, so that's a really good sign of awareness on the court.
Yeah, 100%. It was a good game, and well played on both teams.
All right, let's look at round 2.
Here we go. Game 2. Shadow Cadets in red versus Griffins on blue. Straight out the gates there from Shadow Cadets. Ooh, but Griffins fighting back, holding to 1-1 now, 20 seconds played. Shields coming up from there from both sides. See if the Griffins can get a few more shields up. That's definitely reduced the score in there. 2 apiece. Griffins putting on a much better fight in the second round. Shadow Cadets are going to have to seriously work. Griffins are not going to let them take this game without putting up a serious fight. Points in it. Still 2 points in it. Great scores there from both sides. 20 seconds to play. Griffins starting to clump a little again. That's what cost them so badly in the first round. Need to separate out from each other. Make it far too easy for Shadow Cadets to rack up points. And that's looking like Shadow Cadets round 2 win.
Okay, so round 2 there, and the Shadow Cadets again doing well, but Balsacom Griffins most certainly not a walkover for them then.
100%. I mean, I'm quite happy with that game. The Balsacom Griffins, I absolute credit to them because they came out the gate swinging. Again, nothing massively tactically changed from a stats perspective. They just were trying it, I think, a bit harder. They definitely focused on the front point guard or Tom for the Shadow Cadets. He was definitely under a lot more pressure, and they were getting knockouts on him. So at which point that reduced the amount of shots coming back at them. There could have been a bit of a chat about, okay, he's a good shooter. Let's put pressure on him because if we shoot at him, A, we get knockouts, but B, it stops him shooting back at us.
Yep. I mean, that was clear. Not just for the fact he's getting knocked out, but the fact that, sort of going against your comments on his spends on shields, he actually used shields to basically give himself a bit of breathing space, take some pressure off him.
He used one shield.
He used one shield, but nonetheless,
Get rid of that point in shields. But no, he did use it. Yeah,
to basically give himself a breather, get his head back in things.
Yes.
And he started picking up from that point onwards. But
yeah, 100%. And again, it was an interesting thing because actually, if you watch what happens, he put the shield up, and the other team stopped shooting him because they went psychologically, oh, he's behind a shield, that's not worth shooting. What they should have done at that point is just carried on shooting, knocked that shield down, and knocked him out. And then they'd have carried on, but actually they left him alone a bit, and then from that point he started getting the points back. And again, fair cop to the rest of the Shadow Cadets for keeping it cool, and they were getting knockouts as well. So even though he was under more pressure, the rest of his team were able to sort of keep some of the pressure off by keeping the point score good. But either way, it was a good game, and Borsal Common Griffins, absolutely amazing effort for given how experienced they are. It was really good.
Yeah,
nothing else to add to that. That was brilliant.
Nice game. Okay, let's move on.
Cool.
So this is RGM Blades in blue versus Banana Soup on red. So RGM Blades really need to win this best of three if they want to stay in. Low scoring so far. Points on the board. So 2 points here for Banana Soup. Very, very little in it. Fantastic defense from RGM Blades and Banana Soup. Let's see RGM getting whittled down on those life markers though. Need to get some points on the board though. Fight back here. And RGM Blades are on the board. Just 2 points in it with 15 seconds to play. 10 seconds. And Banana Soup take game one.
Alright guys, up next we've got RGM Blades on blue and the Banana Soup on red. It's a good game. Basically we've got Banana Soup are a very strong team. Statistically, we went with builds that were pretty similar to what we've done previously. Banana Soup going with a shield build with one guy having some points in charge 4 for a bit of technician. On the opposite side of that, you got RGN. They went for again a shield build. Again, if I was to give them one floor, it would be taking scale 5 and speed 1. Again, that's good against people that don't dodge a lot, against people that dodge a lot, especially someone like Banana Soup who are good at dodging. Yeah. It's not a great build, understandably. It is worth mentioning there was a false start on this game. So basically, one of the players on RGN slipped and injured his leg in basically just at the start of the game previous, and we restarted just to make sure he was okay. But if you see him limping about, it's their back player. That's basically what that's about. He sort of pulled something in his leg a little bit. So to be fair to him, he carried on playing with a bit of a dodgy leg for the rest of the day.
Yeah, and I mean, as you can see quite clearly, though, that first whole half of the match where the score was so low all the way through, there was some phenomenally good dodging going on.
Yes.
RGM Blades were, I mean, yes, Banana Soup got a couple of points off them, but overall their dodging was really, really good, and they were forcing Banana Soup to whittle them down pretty much one life marker at a time,
100%.
rather than getting any nice clean shots in there.
It's one of those things actually when the RAF teams come, they're always, whoever's in their RAF team are always physically willing to throw themselves around and dodge really well. They're a very physical team, which gives them some really good advantages a lot of the time. In this one, as say Banana Soup almost whittling down. They did have some issues there. One of their players was having some charging issues, not managing to get some shots out. I actually spoke to him after that match to try and help him out, and in the next one, hopefully he does a bit better. But fundamentally, a lot of that comes down to when you're under pressure, your arm has to be upright to charge. And what was happening is what we call chicken winning, is when stuff's going on, he was grabbing the side of his visor and his arm was going out, which meant his arm was angled, which means he wasn't charging energy. And it's very frustrating when it happens because it's not always obvious to you when you're playing what's going on. He actually had some people on the sidelines trying to tell him, get your elbow in, and he managed to do it a couple of times, but that was why he was having issues charging in that round, and he was their main shooter, so there
100%.
wasn't that pressure going out.
Yeah.
If he hadn't had that issue in that round, especially where they were dodging, they'd have stood a good chance of winning.
Yeah, I think they would have done.
So it was an interesting one to see.
I mean, I know he's one of the more experienced players they've got.
Yeah.
But even
It's
so,
an experience
in
thing.
comparison to teams like Banana Soup, who are training multiple times a week, basically we just need to get the RGM Blades and the other RAF teams just on the court more often.
It is a very common thing, and like even when I play, I'm very experienced myself. I get the same thing occasionally. I chicken win, and it's that thing. If you've got to slow down, look at what you're doing, go right. It's not shooting. What's going on? And you almost have to stop playing the game, keep dodging, but stop trying to shoot. Just look at your arm, and work out what the problem is, and solve it.
It's one of those things. More adrenaline kicks in, the more muscles tend to tense up. The more muscles tense up, the more it pulls your arm out of position.
Yep.
So one of the things we mentioned about several teams is basically when they're doing really well, they're looking really relaxed. And that's really important here, that your arm's relaxed, that you're not got the tension there. It naturally sits in the right position, so everything works. So therefore you don't get stressed, which means you can stay relaxed. Whereas the other way around, if you start to get tense, things move out of position. You're not activating the game controls correctly, at which point things go wrong, so you get more tense.
It's the key thing, that pressure is important in this sport. If you can pressure the other team to the point where they start tensing up or not thinking clearly, that's when you start getting really good wins. And the same thing, you've just got to stay cool no matter what's coming at you. You've got to basically stay calm and keep relaxed.
Right, so let's see how they do in game.
Here we go then, guys. So, second match of the best of 3. RGM Blades in blue and Banana Soup on red. RGM Blades with nice shield tactics both sides there. Got to get some points on the board with the use of these shields though. Shields are great because you protect your team, but they use a lot of your ability points in order to put up decent ones. Which means when they go up, you've got to make the best of them, because you've sacrificed a lot of firepower in order to have those expensive shield abilities. 2-0 so far for RGM Blades. Great first half. Banana Soup pulled it back though, 2 points apiece. Really need to get rid of that red shield. It's given Banana Soup way too much cover. 2-point lead now for Banana Soup. RGM fighting back. There we go, that centre shield from Banana Soup's gone. Back up though. 5 points apiece, 20 seconds to play. 2-point lead going in for Banana Soup. RGM fighting back again. You've got to win this match. 2 points in it, 5 seconds to play. 3 points. And Banana Soup take the second round, 9 points to 6.
So, second match there, RGM Blades against Banana Soup. Very different feel to that game. Much better opening play there from RGM Blades. Really good opening shield play. Good positioning from both the technician and assassin players there. The start of that match especially really looked like RGM Blades were going to get some momentum going and get moving.
I think they did a brilliant job. So that was their best tactical choice, was before that game in the whole tournament so far. So again, they had their shooter go more of an assassin build, so he had a speed of 4, which is good against people that are dodging, so that's good. The shielder stick with the same build, but he played amazingly. I'll talk about him in a minute, but he was my man of the match with RGN. He played brilliantly. And again, a player 4, who's normally the guy that takes the high scale, toned it back and went for a technician build where he had scale 3 and charge 5. Again, very sort of possibly good call. If I had to change anything, it'd be really niggly. I'd potentially have gone 2 speed, 2 scale and 5 charge. Could have found it easier to knock people out. But that being said, that was still a good choice, because it meant that they could deal with the shield tactics from Banana Soup, give them space to manage to get shots on the other team. But going back to what I said earlier, the shielder on RGN, absolutely brilliant. He remained calm. All his shields went out where he wanted them. They were quite well angled from my perspective.
And good speed across the court as well, good movement. And even once his shields were gone, he was doing quite a good decoy job to try and pull fire onto himself to take pressure off the other two teammates.
100%, and he was also tapping their shields down as well. So he did basically the three things that you need to be doing in that role. Again, their shooter, player 5, a good job. Like, he managed to resolve the issues that he was having in the previous game with chicken winning, and that's difficult. Like, when you get told at the end of the game, the reason it was because your arm was out, it's difficult to be able to take that on board and then go, actually, I need to do that, and he did. And actually, it paid out for them. Yes, they didn't win. I would say that their tactical and all the choices they made before the game and during the game were 100% all the right choices, and basically it's unfortunate they didn't manage to take the win there, but they had a really good opportunity.
Yeah, it's a good game, and hopefully they'll take some more from that and go forward.
Yeah, that was really good.
Okay, here we go.
This best of 3 is the battle for the second semi-final place for Pool A. And SS Ninjas are off the scoreboard first. Fighting Mongoose is fighting back good and fast though. 2 points apiece. Looks like we have a very, very even pool game here. Two very good teams. 4 points apiece, 30 seconds played. Few slips and trips there from fighting mongooses, but most certainly still staying in this match. Still just that 1 point difference separating the teams, and back to even again. Mongoose is now edging ahead. 2 point lead. 20 seconds to just over 20 seconds still to play. 2 point lead still holding. 1 point split now. Back to even. SAS Ninjas, 2 points ahead now, 10 seconds to play. Still far too close to call. The Ninjas take game 1, 14 points to 10.
Alright guys, really exciting game. We've got blue was the Fighting Mongooses, and in red we've got SAS Ninjas. Again, it's worth mentioning, these teams had a bit of rivalry before they even started. They had actually trained together the previous day, or some of them, so they kind of knew a bit about each other's tactics and stuff like that. It's also worth mentioning a point we were talking about just beforehand, that this was for the semi-final position.
So the top 2 teams from each pool were going to go through to the semi-final. IDK quite clearly going to win this pool. But
this was the second place in that pool.
This was the second place. So SS Ninjas and Mongooses both needed to win this game in order to take that second semi-final place from the pool.
So there's a lot on the plate. This one is an interesting one from a stats perspective. So basically, SAS Ninjas again went for a shooting build. They probably won't mind me saying this, but I know that they've all got a lot of ego and they like knocking people out. So their team, if anything, is known a little bit for just going shooting. And then Fighting Mongooses decided to do a shield build, which again they've used to multiple times in this tournament. And so it was an interesting thing of like, how's that going to go against each other. And I would say that for me, this game was about remaining cool under pressure. Fundamentally, that both teams were playing well, and it was just, you've got to be patient almost, because when the shields are going up in front of you, you've got to be able to buy time, get them down as quick as you can to give yourself more time at the end of the match to make back a point deficit. And you're trying not to give a point deficit basically to the other team while they've got the shields up.
There was one particularly key moment there with Shamai, where went pretty much face to face with one of the Mongoose shields, and kept evading. I mean, they got him in the end, but he evaded for a really long time. He drew fire onto himself. Had he not done that, from that shield positioning, they would have had a fantastic cross-shot point into the rest of his team.
That was player 2 on the red team, just for people who don't know who he is.
And basically, it would have caused, basically, it would open up the gates to a lot of points being scored by the Mongooses. And the fact that he kept himself right in front of that shield, kept their attention on him.
it's one of those things.
Basically, eventually it cost his team a point because he got knocked out. But he stopped a good 3 or 4 points being scored from the cross shots that would have come from that shield position.
Like genuinely charging a big shield, right, so that you can't shoot them, right, and being able to remain calm under pressure from getting shot from right point blank range but still dodge is really hard to do, and that was impressive play. And he was also trying to do things like tap the shield or hit to the right. So he was also still doing stuff, but he was drawing so much far from the rest of his team that they didn't get the points they needed. So he basically used his dodging ability really well to defend his team there. And then right at the end, they started to come back. The shield tactics are now down. They've got the advantage because they've got 3 shooters and the other team's got 2, and it's more of a straight shootout. But with the downside of mongooses were 1 person down in the shootout.
Up until while the shields were still there, it was flicking one way, then the other. Couple of point lead for mongooses, couple of point lead for SAS ninjas. But when the shields went down and just the straight firepower that SAS had there, it just told them those last few seconds, and they took the match. Yeah,
it's an interesting one because it's worth noting that shields are the only thing in the game that are finite, right? If it goes to overtime, things like that, the games can go on for a very long time, but shields don't regenerate. So fundamentally, once your shields are gone, you need to have made your points in that time. If you haven't, you're at a deficit at that point because you don't have the points spent in shooting, and the other team might.
Yeah, we mentioned a couple of times in some of the other teams that basically the way the stats work, obviously, go from between 1 and 5. With shields, that's the number of shields you get to use during the game. So because they're the finite resource, when you use shields, you have to earn from them. If you're putting shields up and your team are not racking up the points while those shields are up, then they're not benefited you at all because you've not managed to capitalise on them. And once the shields are gone, whoever your shield user is now open because they've put so much into having those heavy duty shields. They've really got nothing left that they're going to come up with to give any sort of offensive edge to your team at all.
To be fair to mongooses, they still used them really effectively. Like
they did.
That was what I would not have wanted to be in SAS Ninjas.
No, that was what kept them in the game,
and
it was really good play by the Ninjas to whittle those shields down, and then create that gap at the end of the game where they could take the points.
100%.
Okay, let's look at round 2.
Here we go then, game 2. So, SAS Ninjas need to win this for their semi-final place. Mongooses need to win this to stay in the fight. Mongooses will take the first point on the board. SAS Ninjas are firing almost immediately. Both teams here now looking like they've gone for pure firepower builds. 2 points apiece. 3-2 now. 4-2. 4 all. 30 seconds gone. Teams can choose on their builds for individual players and across the whole team. Defensive, offensive, heavy firepower, rapid fire. They can change the speed and size of their shots. They can alter the number of defensive shields they have and their individual strength. But to be better at one thing, you've got to do worse at something else. 9 points apiece. Real heavy firepower builds from both teams here, keeping us absolutely neck and neck all the way through. Blues edging ahead now by a point. Mongoose is pulling it back. Absolute dead heat at 10-second mark now. This is literally anybody's game at this point. 3, 2, and we're going to overtime. Every match must have a winner. 10 seconds to get your breath back, and it goes to overtime. Teams do not recover any shields, nor do they regain any life markers. You begin as you finished. First knockout on any player takes the match. And it goes to SAS Ninjas in overtime. 16 points to 15.
That was a good game.
That was an amazing game. Absolutely down to the wire. So, big shift in tactics there from mongooses. Ninjas staying with what we've seen previously with the heavy firepower build. Mongooses basically changing their tactics to match them on that firepower build.
Yeah, I think interestingly, so their shielder basically went for what was more equivalent to a technician role, but I think they did it intentionally. And they took charge 5, and again with 2 speed, 2 scale. The reasoning to do that would to be counter to a shield, but I don't think they did that for that reason. I think they did it to try and put as much pressure as they could. When you've got charge 5, you can fire so many energy orbs that it kind of fills the area a bit. And I think having some high charge rate means you can put pressure on, and I think that's why they did it, and it was working. I mean, that game was as close as you can get. There was, any moment, any one of those teams could win. We've mentioned it before in previous games, but effectively, the way the game works, there's always 3 points on the pitch because you've got 3 opponents. So unless you've got a clear 3-4 point lead, you're not in the lead, right? So if you're only 1 point off, you can turn on any moment.
Or 2 points, and it showed it there. The constant flipping the game one way and the other.
Yeah, and absolute credit to both teams there for staying cool, because that was. I remember watching that live, and it was really tense, right? And it was tense for people watching the match. It would have been far more tense for people actually there, playing. There's a lot on the line, and it's a tough game. It came down to overtime. We don't get overtime that often.
No, but there was a distinct difference there.
Yeah.
What happened in overtime? 10 seconds of overtime. Mongooses used that to try and get the breath back a little bit and get their heads into it. Ninjas came together and very clearly had a quick tactical discussion.
Yeah.
And I think that was what really threw it in overtime. Ninjas decided an opponent that they were going to target.
Yeah.
They knew who they were going for. Mongooses just used to get the breath back, and unfortunately I think that was the point where they lost the game.
Having trained with both teams, that's exactly what happened. Basically, the SAS Ninjas know going into overtime you generally want to focus one person because you've only got to get one knockout. So what they'll have done is someone would have called the target. In that case, I think they picked on somebody that basically they knew were getting tired towards the end of the match, so it was probably going to be a bit more sluggish on the dodging, and then they did what they needed to do to knock that person out. And that's what you've got to do when you comes to overtime. Have a plan who you're going to knock out. Sometimes I think actually in that game, to be fair, if I remember correctly, you can't necessarily hear it on the video, but the mongooses actually did shout, "Shoot the guy in the middle," just as it started. But the problem with that is they actually told the SS Ninjas who they're going to shoot, and so he just went full defensive. And so basically, not only did they not do it subtly, they left it to the last minute, and then they also gave away their plan. So they lost on 2 fronts there.
Nonetheless, an amazing show of shooting ability and dodging 100%. From both teams there.
Yeah.
It was absolutely down to the wire.
Yeah.
Really,
my game
really
of the match so far, fundamentally my favourite game of the tournament so far, that was a brilliant game. And it was, as I say, tense to watch at the time. It's still tense now when I rewatch it. So good work for both teams, basically.
Yep. But as we mentioned at the start, this was for the semi-final place, so we know this match has then confirmed SS Ninjas in the semi-final. Matches have already had has already confirmed IDK as going through to the semi-final. Both these were the Pool A semi-finalists for those ones. Okay, let's move on. Good.
Here we go. Game 1 in this best of 3. That's IDK on the board. Sanarul desperately trying to put some firepower out there. Defensive shield up. Give them the opportunity to get something on the board here. Shield prep going on in the centre there. Problem is when you're taken out, your shield timer resets. It takes a good couple of seconds for the shield to go in the right position. Also, unfortunately, for less experienced players, you can find the shield charge position gets knocked out of line. Mainly because you're tensed up with adrenaline and your arm braced up, and you can't get that actual vertical downwards position that you need to prep and ready a shield. Huge amount of support here for Blues just to get that 1 point on the board. 1 point on any player, that's all the crowd are asking of them.
Hi guys, so at this point, I think this was the last game in their pool, but basically you've got IDK in red versus Sana all in blue. I would say this is probably the biggest mismatch in the tournament so far. So you've got the UK champions at that point playing against a team that has literally turned up on the day to give it a go. They've had a little bit of experience, but not a lot. So interesting choices to start though. So if you look at the stat builds, basically Sanarol actually went quite a smart build. They had a defender, they had an assassin effectively, or a normal shooter, and then they had someone being a technician role, and that's actually quite a good idea to try it against someone IDK. IDK went pretty much normal shooting. They took a bit of charge extra on somebody just in case they needed to deal with a shield, but I think they were feeling pretty confident going in that they'd be able to have a shootout and win.
Yeah, I'd say that's very fair. One thing should be said about why we've got such an inexperienced team in the UK Championships. Basically, if for any reason we don't end up with all of the qualification places being taken, we do allow wildcard slots, and Sanarol were a wildcard team that are chosen to enter. Unfortunately, that does mean that games like this something can happen. Obviously, as we get more arenas on board and more teams, it's likely that wildcard slots will disappear.
Less, yeah.
But for this year, they were still a thing.
That being said, it's one of those I've played against ridiculously good teams myself, and it is fun, even if you're in a team that's not going to do very well, because it's still a fun game. And the opportunity to play against the UK champions shouldn't be scoffed at. They're a really good team, and they're also really. I just want to point out really good sports, because there's a point both before and after this that their coach was actually helping coach Sanarol to try and help them beat their own team, which is just amazing.
Really great sportsmanship.
Yeah, 100%. But the game, I mean, basically went the way you would have expected. IDK effectively just masters of dodging and shooting. I did see them taking advantage. So player 5 was the shielder for Sanarol, and that person was being targeted quite heavily, because you can tell when someone's arms down, that's an indication that they're the shielder. And IDK were taking every opportunity they could to knock that person out because they didn't want shields going up.
Unfortunately, we mentioned it on the charging arm, which raised before, that if you get tense, it's easy for the position to go out. You've got the equivalent issue with the shielding here. It's not quite that clear when you're actually watching the match, because her arm looks like it's down because it's in line with the leg. However, yes, it's in line with the leg, but it was at about a 40-degree angle from the body, rather than being vertically down, which is why she wasn't charging it. And it's getting that she got tension and lots of pressure. The muscles are tense, the arm had gone out of alignment, and so she wasn't getting the shield up.
I should know this. Is it 2.5 to 3 seconds you've got to have your arm down to
3
charge?
seconds.
3 seconds. And the thing is, as well, if you get knocked out in that time, it's really off-putting, because you're kind of focused on the green bar on your screen to see if it's charging, and then all of a sudden it just doesn't charge, and you may not have realised you've been knocked out. And so I think that happened a couple of times where she was like, "Oh, I'm doing it," and then there was a knockout already happened, or her arm wasn't quite in the right place. Otherwise, I mean, they cracked on, they did their best to try and get some points, and they just weren't unfortunately able to do it in this round.
Okay.
So yeah, well played IDK, and a good effort from Sanarol.
Next round?
Yeah,
it's going to be more.
Here we go then. So set 2. Can Sanarol meet the crowd's expectations and get a point on the board against IDK? Or IDK going to manage to take a second match in a row with no points scored against them? Sanarol there getting trapped in the sort of less experienced team set up there, desperately trying to get the shield up. And if anything goes wrong with the shield charging position, and it's only over the arm position that causes the issue. Unfortunately, the shield charger there trying to get the prep. The arm is pointing downwards, but it's pointing down at about a 30-degree angle, and you need to be on a vertical down in all planes for the ability to activate. And they've got the point on the board. As I said, that's all the crowd wanted to see. So, IDK take the game, but I think it's a moral victory there for Sanarol.
So, kind of what we were expecting there, but as the crowd very much wanted to see there, a point on the board there for Sanarol. I believe it was scored on Paris.
It was not Paris out.
Who was trying to claim that they were going to go for a second match with a 0-point score. So kind of ironic that he was the one that got hit.
I was on the sideline at the start. There may have been a conversation with how many points is Sanarol going to get, and there was a very confident Paris at that point said, "Oh, they're not going to get any." I was very happy when they got a point against them. It was again, it's what we expect from IDK. It was interesting. I was saying during watching it that Milo, or their front guard. So generally, what happens is your rear players will have to adjust position based on the front player, and with IDK they move around normally so much it's really difficult to work out how they're making decisions and who's leading, who's following who. But in that game I definitely noticed there was a point where Milo was moving at the front and his teammates behind him were doing a really good job at accentuating his position so that he could get the best sort of cross shots and things he could without them lining up on him. So I think there's definitely something to be said that if you're going up against them, watch for Milo moving, and then what's going to happen behind that is very dependent on that.
Yeah, the rest of the team are definitely
giving him opportunities,
working their positions based upon where he's moved when he's in that front guard position.
100%. Equally, they can all do it because when Paris goes in the front guard position, things like that, they adjust around it. So it's just one of those things. It's interesting to see them moving less because they were so focused on shooting, and actually see them doing stuff.
Although, I suppose tactically with what we see in this tournament, though, if Paris is in the front guard, they're more likely to play in the shield build.
Correct.
If Milo's in the front guard,
they're doing shooting.
They're doing a firepower build.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing to be able to watch for.
Yeah, 100%. Fundamentally, I'm very happy that Sanarol got a point. Well done. Good effort. And to be fair, it was they're more experienced players, so good effort. He'd kind of got roped in last minute to help out, and he's actually trained against IDK as well. I think he's either friends or associated with Banana Soup in some way, so he's actually got a bit of training. Other than that, not much to say on that game.
Okay, let's move on.
All right, so that game's going to be Walking Stick in blue and the Boss in red. So again, the Boss, training partners of IDK, confident team, very good. Walking Stick, been at a few tournaments, not new to the block. I'm pretty certain they've played each other before, or at least they've been around each other before. So, there's not complete unknowns there.
Yeah.
Stats wise, the Boss did their usual thing. Their gameplay was slightly different than normal, but their stats were the same.
Very different from normal. The shield position was totally different to what we normally see from them.
Correct.
Kind of get the feeling that they felt confident enough going in to try something new.
Yeah. It's interesting because they didn't do those tactics perfectly. What they were trying to do is basically put a shield. I'm not going to, they won the game, but fundamentally what they're trying to do is put shields at the front at an angle position like this. What I would say is their left hand one wasn't quite close enough to the edge. That being said, I know, for example, there was some issues in this tournament, people putting their foot over the line, and so they might have been extra careful not to step over the line, so that was why their shield was maybe a bit in. But the downside is that it does leave a little bit of an opening for someone to get around it, which Walking Stick weren't able to capitalise on, but it's worth just mentioning that's a thing.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd say towards Walking Stick is like they had 2 people charged 4, and then another charged 3, so they had plenty of shots to be firing out, and they didn't concentrate fire well enough. There was a couple of times they did.
Yeah, the shields went down. They unfortunately, what we saw there from the boss though was a really good bait tactic.
Yeah.
So they'd got a shield on the far right hand side with 2 people behind it, and they'd got a single shooter right on the back wall who was going the full width of the court, and he was basically drawing fire onto him, but he was so far out.
You're not going to hit him.
The odds of hitting were really low.
Yep.
He was dodging and moving well, but all those charge shots, and there was lots of shots being fired at him that should have been hitting that shield, weren't. They were firing into him,
Yep.
and that left 2 people on the front line behind a shield, just able to just sit there and snipe. I know, point after point off Walking Stick.
That is a tactic you see in 2v2 games. So basically, you put a shield up on the right front, left. You get somebody behind it, then the other person distracts. And in 2v2 games, it's really good. Like in the first year that we ran the UK Championship, it was just a 2v2 tournament, and that tactic was used quite successfully then and since then. In a 3v3, you generally have enough charge. You can keep those people out of those positions, keep the charge down. And these guys with 2 charges at 4, 1 charge 3, they shouldn't have left those people on the front line. They should have knocked that shield down,
Yeah.
got rid of the place for them to hide, and then take them there. But it is what it is.
But I mean, fair play to the boss. The tactic was good. That bait tactic works.
It did, yeah.
And it drew the fire away and just allowed them to rack up points from that sniper position.
100%.
Okay, so look at round 2.
Yep.
Here we go, game 2. Let's see if Walking Stick have learned their lesson from game 1. We've got some answers to those shield tactics from the boss. Okay, shields up from both sides, but the boss with first points on the board there. Yeah, and we're going to reset that game there. One of the Walking Stick players' wrist mounted device came loose during the game there. So just cycling back round. I'm going to redo that game. Here we go then. So, second game, Walking Sticks versus the boss. Can Walking Stick learn to deal with those shield tactics? Shields up on both sides now. Walking Stick's got to stay really mobile, but they've got to get those shields down. Boss just not giving them a chance to charge their own shields. Firepower is most certainly going to be their friend here. Shields of their own are helpful, but they need points on the board. It's all about firepower now. That's first points on the board for Walking Stick. Approaching the halfway mark. Fantastic barrows there from the boss. Looking like there should know shield tactics from the boss at the start there. And their overall accuracy is going to swing it here, but Walking Stick are fighting back. 5 points in it, 20 seconds to play. Everything's possible at this stage. And that is going to be a win for the boss. So, C, that's going to see the boss and Universe A moving through to the semi-final, and that's the end of the road for Walking Stick.
Okay, so round 2 there. Some slightly different tactics. Interesting to see that obviously Boss still playing with this sort of side shield idea. They were trying it in the first game.
Yep. I mean, they had to come along and ruin it after we said that their typecast is doing the same tactic. They obviously heard us in the past and started changing it. But yeah, no, they actually, like going back to what I said in the previous one about their shield positioning was really good in this one. Like again, if anything, it was slightly far forward, but I'm not going to naysay that. It's pretty good. The opposite team, walking stick, they did take more charge, so player 5 went up to charge 5. Bit of an odd choice in his positioning because basically he was the front guard. Front guards are not a great position to have your technician in because they're generally getting shot at a lot, so they're not in the game for as long.
You need your technician to be clear of pressure so they can really focus well where it needs to be, and you don't want them being taken out because they're just not putting those rapid shots out for you. He also seemed to get obsessed with trying to put a shield up halfway through.
He did,
which is he only had one shield, really wasn't.
It wasn't tactically a good idea.
Unfortunately, if he just kept firing,
they'd have been in a better position. Well, so interestingly, you saw towards the end they actually started getting some points on the board. The Boss actually, they looked really confident on the front line even after all their shields were gone, and they had probably about 20 seconds left on the clock or something. And it was at that point Walkie Stick started getting some knockouts, and then you see them back up, and then they're being more careful towards the back of the pitch because they actually realise, hang on, they're catching up, we need to keep our point lead. But by that point they'd got enough of a point lead. They're also good enough at dodging that they can keep out of the way. If anything, just have your technician slightly further back and focus on those shields.
And that could have been a very different game if he'd been able, if he'd got that
sorted.
But yeah, it was good to see though that the
was good decision,
the boss once the shields were gone were getting overconfident on the front line.
They got under pressure,
and Walker Six started hurting them for that. And then that tactical choice for them to step back, open distance, and allow themselves to dodge and keep out the way of Walker Six fire. Again,
they did leave one of their players forward, but he was clearly the one that was good at dodging. And again, he was drawing fire, same as the previous game. He was doing his job to kind of go, look at me. And it's very easy to get addicted to shooting the person that's right in front of you that's dodging because he feels close and he feels like an easy shot. But actually, sometimes you need to ignore that person and shoot somebody at the back who's less good at dodging.
That sort of bait tactic, whether it's with the solo out from the size of shields or someone running across the front basically to grab your attention. It's a good tactic. It's very easy to fall into that trap, and it just takes all the pressure off the rest of the team.
But well played.
All right, let's move on.
Preps are ready. Here we go. Game 1 in this best of 3. So BC Griffins on red versus RGM Blades in blue. That's first point on the board there for red. Nice return from RGM Blades, and Blades take the lead. Good return from Griffins though. Fantastic watching these junior teams not being feeling they're being undermined in any way by playing against the adults. They're taking them on as absolute equals here. Blades starting to rack up the points though, but Griffin's still fighting back. Looking on balance like Blades are going to take this first game, but Griffins most certainly are not going down without a fight. Fantastic play from the junior team here. Blades are going to take it, but they had to work for it. First game goes to RGM Blades, 15 points to 8.
Alright guys, so up next is we've got RGM Blades in blue and we've got the Borsal Common Griffins in red. So yeah, some young kids against guys from the RAF. Okay, so talking stats wise, the RAF went for a sort of defender, assassin, technician build. And actually, you know, we said in the previous stuff that was a build that was better than the previous builds they've been doing. And actually, I think they did all right with it. You know, we'll see what happens. You know, see what happens in the match. There's one of their players that's particularly good. Managed to get 15 knockouts to two deaths. On the opposite side, you've got the Walsall Common Griffins. They went for a more standard sort of straight shootout. One person took 3 shields, maybe to give himself a bit more extra protection, but that wouldn't have been able to cope with the charge 5 coming out of, charge 4 coming out of the other team. And then they also had a person with charge 4 to deal with some shields, which again they were doing quite a good job actually to keeping the shields down from RGN.
Yeah, overall, and anyway, the comment about it being, basically adults versus young children. The Walsall Common Griffins are relatively young.
Yeah.
But given that they were not in any way phased at all by being against the older players, and the fact is that they scored points, they did well.
I think RGN didn't expect them to be that good actually.
I mean,
they did a really good job.
Won the game, and fair play to them for winning it.
Yeah.
But I don't think they expected the younger players to be able to play that well, and again, it's more testament to why the sport doesn't have age categories. Yeah,
100%. I mean, cut a long story short, your accuracy is determined by your patience and your ability to aim your target. And so, you don't have to put a spin on a ball or something like that, or learn some really difficult technique. There is some technique, but you can learn that relatively quick. It's all about remaining calm, getting a shot on target and firing, and these kids showed that they can do it. Equally, player number 4 on RGN also showed he was very calm and accurate. 15-2, really good effort. Good game. And Walsall Common Griffins, absolutely well played. Like, really good.
Yeah.
Cannot fault them. They did a really good job.
Right. Let's see our game.
Here we go then. Game 2. RGN Blades on blue. And Walsall Common Griffins on red. First point on the board there for BC Griffins. See if they can get rid of those shields. Massive shield defense being put up by RGN Blades. Both teams 1 point apiece at this stage. Griffins red shield up. Almost straight down again, but they earn the points off it. Good concentrated fire coming from the Griffins now, 4 points to 2. Floor work there trying to get below, but just left him prone for too long in that centre point on the pitch, and Griffins took advantage. RGN Blades fighting back. 1 point in it now, 2 points in it again. Griffins are not letting them catch. Yeah, this groundwork technique that RGN Blades is going for is not helping them in the slightest. They're staying prone for far too long, and the Griffins are capitalising on it. And this looks like to be a second round win for the Griffins, 10 points to 7.
Okay, so round 2, and the Walsall Common Griffins taking victory over RGN Blades.
Fair call.
Fair call. I mean, you're going to take the stats, but there are some clear issues as to why that occurred as the outcome.
There were some stats choices that were interesting. So basically, they've gone back almost to form in the respect that they took scale 5, speed 1, makes it difficult. Again, why they made those choices, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe they thought that they could hit the Walsall Common Griffins, they weren't dodging enough. But fundamentally, that didn't help them. Separately, on the Walsall Common Griffins side, absolute credit to them for somebody taking charge 5, because they'd obviously had an issue with shields in the first round. So they had somebody who was a technician ready to do it. And actually, to be fair, the amount of bullets he used 61, was like twice as many as the rest of his team. So he was on form doing what he was supposed to be doing. And also, the other thing I would note is that the shooter on RGN Blades did actually take a larger speed. Again, I think he found it quite difficult to hit them in the first round. He didn't, but he wanted to increase his chances of hitting people that being nippy.
They'd obviously also, as well, though, clearly identified him as the key threat. And there was a lot of focus fire on him. He was the first player knocked out from the RGN side. And Griffins, at every opportunity they could, were all putting shots across into him. He was catching a lot of crossfire and an awful lot more pressure than during the first game, because he was such a clear threat to them.
100%. Okay, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. RGN rolling around the floor. So Was that a sensible plan? Not really. And if you notice when they did it, at the start it was actually working. Okay, when you change height like that, it actually is very off-putting because you're not used to looking down, and so all of a sudden you've got to aim down. So originally, when they did it, the Balls Common Griffins didn't adapt very quickly, and they got away with it. And they were moving around on the ground, rolling around a bit, and basically they got away with it. Once the Balls Griffins had seen them do it. And they started doing it more at the end. They got absolutely hammered for it. The guys that were staying low were not able to move quick enough, and the Borsal Common Griffins took advantage of it. They knocked out people where they could. So between that and keeping the pressure on the guy that on the opposite teams, the assassin, effectively, they got the win. So well done, Borsal Common Griffins, and good strategy.
All right, got a deciding match to see them.
100%.
Okay, here we go. First point on the board there to blue. Something tells me that the blades may have reached the point where they're not taking this entirely seriously, going for a whole range of different rolls and somersaults. Red team pulling back. 5 points apiece. Doesn't matter how much the blades trying to use this low groundwork, it is just not paying off for them. Blue team now 2 points ahead, 1 point ahead, and neck. Blue's just edging it again. Also got every chance here. 3 seconds. And RGM Blades take the third game, 11 points to 9.
Right, last game. Probably the silliest game that we had in the tournament.
It's probably worth pointing out that going into this match, both teams at this up until this match had not won a game, so both teams knew that they were out. That neither of them were going to be going through to the semi-finals.
I definitely think there was some planning from the RAF to do some silliness. Match.
Especially in that final game. I think they'd reached the point where they weren't going to win. It really wasn't going to go anywhere, so they might as well have a little bit of fun. So there was some humour, some silliness, some very interesting combat roles.
The rigs especially was my favourite. If you don't know what the rigs is, go watch Lethal Weapon. The rigs was quite stunning there. To be fair, I mean, they still took the win, and they had at least one of their players that was trying to still get knockouts, and actually it was their player that's their main knockout guy. So I mean, stats wise, there's nothing majorly interesting there. One of the players did go have a bit more speed, because obviously he was famous to hit stuff in the previous round. Nothing really changed from the Balsall Common Griffins. If anything, the only thing I really think that won it for RGM was that the Balsall Common Griffins weren't able to keep the pressure on the assassin.
I think they got quite heavily distracted
by
the guys doing the variety of combat roles. And forgot about the fact that it's neither of those two were the threat. It was the guy at the back who was actually scoring the points for them.
Hang on, are we saying that their tactic was a genius bait tactic and that actually it paid off? No, I think not. I think not. But either way, it was good fun to watch. There we go. I think that's enough said about that game.
Okay, then. Let's move on. Moving on to our last game of the pool stage.
Okay then, guys, final set of matches now for the pool stage. Pool C, Shadow Cadets in blue, Banana Soup in red. Both teams currently undefeated. Both teams with 1 point apiece. Banana Soup starting to edge ahead. See if Shadow Cadets have got a response. Shadow Cadets getting not being quite as mobile, nowhere near as mobile as we've seen them in the earlier games, and Banana Soup taking advantage of that. Banana Soup starting to rack the points up here. Shadow Cadets really start to slow down their movement on the court. They need to pick this up considerably for round 2. Got to see if they can try and focus fire and get rid of those shields as well. That's a definitive win, round 1 there for Banana Soup.
Alright, time for the final game of the pool stages. We've got Shadow Cadets on the blue team, and we've got the Banana Soup on the red team. Both good teams again.
Yep, it's worth saying here, as mentioned in the commentary there, at this point both teams are undefeated in the pool, which means that these two teams are both going through to the semi-final. This match is merely to decide which team goes in first position and which team goes through in second position.
Yeah. Which is useful because obviously that would then decide who they were up against and things like that. Okay, so stats-wise, what we got? Basically, Banana Soup going through a sort of one person with a shield build, other guys shooters. With Shadow Cadets, they're going for more of a straight shooter build. They do have someone with charge 4, which is their back player, player number 5, who managed to put a lot of shots out. That being said, I'm not 100% how successful she was during the game. Actually, I'd sort of rewatch it, but those shields were staying up a long time from Banana Soup.
Yeah, they were getting a lot of advantage out of the shields.
Yep.
The Shadow Cadets did have some shield use capacity and it didn't get used.
Yes. Yeah.
It's got to be said that the biggest threat was the Shadow Cadets front guard, player 6 there, and Banana Soup were very clearly
nullified it.
Basically focus firing him, looking at where he was moving to and trying to keep him locked out of the game as much as they could, which, to be fair, is a sensible tactic.
100%.
I do also have to grass Shadow Cadets up a little bit because if you watched any of the previous matches, you'll notice they were a lot slower on their feet in this game than they've been previously. And that was been because they came into this game straight off of pretty much a 15-minute straight full sprint game of TIG that they've been playing against Walking Stick. So they were significantly more tired than they really should have been. And I think for future, that's a tactical error on their behalf that they really should look to not repeat that.
I want to know how much Banana Soup had played Walking Stick to challenge them to a game of TIG before the game.
Now, if they had, I'd have a lot of respect for Banana Soup. But I think I've got to think this was entirely self-inflicted.
Yeah, fair. I mean, that being said, Banana Soup were clearly in a good dominant position in that one.
They're a really good team.
They played really well. And as you say, the key thing that they did was they nullified Tom, who's the front player on Shadow Cadets. They knocked him out a lot. He was under immense amount. He got knocked out 9 times. He still managed to get 4 knockouts, which is fair cop.
But he's still running 56% accuracy and things. So he was still, even with that pressure on, he was still a significant threat.
Yes. But they did the right thing in knocking him out.
And unfortunately, because the shields weren't getting focused down, it meant his 2 teammates weren't really able to put any real pressure on Banana Soup themselves.
Yeah, it is a key thing, is a tactical rule of thumb. If you come up against a team, there's one player on it that's really good at shooting, try and knock them out, because it means that you're
do everything
taking pressure off yourself.
to lock them out of the game.
Well played Banana Soup, and take more of a rest to Shadow Cadets. Let's see if they're still worn out for the next game.
Yeah, let's look at match 2.
And Hado fight. Significant open volleys from both teams. Both points on the board though for Banana Soup. That's centre shields giving Shadow Cadets a problem again. Points on the board for Shadow Cadets. Banana Soup still starting to edge ahead though. Shadow Cadets still fighting, but really got to learn to get rid of those shields on. They're giving Banana Soup way too much of an edge here. 11-5 now, 12-5. Banana Soup starting to open up that point score. Out of court there for Shadow Cadets, but pulled himself back in nice and quickly. For reference, there's zero benefit to leaving court. In fact, shuts down your ability to shoot, as does crossing the centre line, but you can still be shot by the other team. That's 17-7. So that is Banana Soup going through in the first place for Pool C, and Shadow Cadets going through in the second place for Pool C.
Okay, so second game there. Really good play from both teams there. Banana Soup sticking to the tactics that worked well for him in the first round.
Yep.
Focus firing on player 6, so the front guard for Shadow Cadets. Again, it's a good tactic. If you leave any pressure on him at all, he's going to rack up points like crazy. He did better this time than last time.
Yep.
But nonetheless,
not good enough. He's still also the best target, because not only is he the best shooter, but also he's the front person, so he's easier to hit. So it's like a win-win. And then what they were doing was sort of hitting the other front guard for points. If I was to sort of criticise Shadow Cadets a little bit, I would say that player 5, who's their sort of almost technician build with charge 4, did put a fair amount of shots into some shields and stuff, but just it needed to be a bit better because the shields were still staying up too long.
Yep.
And again, the other players could have helped some focus fire. So fundamentally, it's dealing with that shield from Banana Soup, and it didn't happen, which then meant that they were going to have the deficit for most of the game.
Yeah, it really came down to they just need to get rid of the shields.
Yes. Yeah.
At the points where the shields were down,
Yep.
Things started immediately picking up again for Shadow Cadets.
Yep.
But I think it was still an experience issue rather than anything else.
It's also
Shadow Cadets putting a good fight. Banana Soup though, being superior team on experience here, good tactics, good use of shields. And good targeting of the major threat on the other side.
It's one of those key points actually when you have a pickup team. So basically the Shadow Cadets were kind of a bit of a pickup team. They were made up of people that had played a lot but not necessarily played together, and that's when you start getting these tactical issues where basically it's not, you don't have a definitive plan, because rounds are only 80 seconds long. You have to have a pre-set plan as to how you're going to deal with lots of different stuff. And if you come up against something you've not seen before, or you haven't got a definitive plan for, like the shield thing, and you're not locked in the respect of that person's responsibility is get the shields down, I'm going to hit it after 2 seconds or 3 seconds, that's where you start having problems with the more experienced teams that have had a plan to have somebody tap that shield, and then maybe even some of them time it. They'll 4 seconds after the shield goes up, they'll all just spin round and shoot at it, and then whoever the person behind it is gets a bit of a surprise when the shield disappears and they get evaporated.
Yeah.
But we weren't seeing that because they haven't played that much together.
No, but nonetheless, good game.
Yep.
Good tactics there from Banana Soup overall.
100%.
And that is the end of the pool stages.
Cool. On to the semi-finals next.
Yep.